I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Liz Truss considers the largest ever cut to VAT to tackle soaring bills as the Conservative leadership contest enters its final week.
A very good morning to you.
Thank God, says everybody. Thank God it's in its final week, and thank God Isabel is back.
I'm finally back. I missed
Finally
2 weeks
back.
of the leadership contest, and what can I say? It doesn't feel like an awful lot's changed.
Nothing's changed. Nothing has.
Anyway, it's Bank Holiday Monday. We're absolutely delighted to have you with us. It is the 29th of August. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Leading your news this morning, Conservative leadership frontrunner Liz Truss is considering plans to tackle the energy crisis with a 5% cut to VAT. As polling reveals, more than half of Conservative members want energy renationalised.
The outgoing Prime Minister Boris Johnson will reportedly use his final week in office touring the country, with sources suggesting he'll make one final major policy speech before stepping down 7 days from now.
Amber traffic warning in place as millions of drivers hit the roads at the end of the bank holiday. The president of the AA has advised travellers to carry food and water in the event of severe delays.
And remember, we love to hear from you throughout the programme. Get involved in any of our conversations. Email us, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
You can also subscribe to the GB News channel on YouTube. We've got an app as well. You get all the latest on the big stories. Stay involved. Remember, GB News, the People's News channel.
To our top story this morning, and Conservative leadership frontrunner Liz Truss is reportedly considering a radical slashing of VAT by 5% in order to try and help voters to cope with the worsening cost of living.
So my first reaction to that is, how radical is 5%? We've got Malcolm Grimston now. Malcolm's a senior research fellow at the Centre for Energy Policy. on all this? And maybe you can tell us, Malcolm, 5%?
Well, I think that's talking about 5% right the way across the board, not just energy. Energy already has a lower rate of VAT at 5% compared to 20% across the economy as a whole. I guess the question with all of this is, things are going to be horrendous over the course of the next year. Government can do something about that, but shifting the burden from consumers onto taxpayers still leaves the problem somewhere in the UK.
It's a big problem. Nearly 1 in 4 adults planning not to turn on their heating over the winter. What do you make of that?
I mean, that presumably is if nothing changes and if no help is available. I think we've got to be very, very tight in targeting the help to those who need it most. The group of people I'm most concerned about are those on prepayment meters. Many of us who use direct debit at the moment, we're building up a bit of money because we're not using all that much energy, and that's something which will be in the bank when it comes to the great increases later in the year. For those who are on prepaid meters, of course, they're paying literally sort of hand to mouth. They're paying as they go along. They're going to be horrendously hit there. So the real focus, my view, rather than trying to bring the overall price of energy down, for me, people like me, I'll take energy more seriously, and somewhere there has to be more money for investment to stop this happening again. But I think it's targeting at those who are going to face the most difficulty rather than a general reduction in
Malcolm, talking about radical, rethinks when we talk about this crisis, interesting to see that in a YouGov poll commissioned by the Times newspaper this morning, half of current Conservative voters would be in favour of renationalising our energy companies. Now, you wouldn't expect Tories to take a sort of socialist approach on this. Can you just give your reaction to that and also compare us to other countries? Because we're a bit of an outlier compared to many other European countries when it comes to this.
Well, there's a lot of variation. I mean, France, the electricity industry is basically nationalised. The EDF is technically a company, but 84% of it is owned by the French state. In Germany, it's pretty much all in private hands. In Sweden, it's always been a mixture of private and public ownership.
Is anyone else seeing the same sort of price hikes that the UK is facing?
Yes, they are. I mean, the basic price hike is caused by the international gas price. So the question is really, what are different governments doing about it? In France, because they have a lot of nuclear, which hasn't been affected by this crisis, they've been able to cap the increase on energy prices by 4%. And that's been helped by the fact that it's a public company. But firstly, private nationalisation will be enormously expensive. If you do it at the point when the companies are very profitable, then they're buying them out is going to be very expensive. And of course, once they're in state hands, then they are competing for investment with the sexier things like the health service and the police and education. And experience of the past is that important infrastructure like the rail network, like water, like energy does not get the investment it really needs when in state hands.
You keep saying that. You said to me earlier there, we've got to make sure there is money for investment. What do you mean by that?
Well, one of the reasons why we are where we are is that we didn't invest in nuclear stations 20 years ago, which could have then been coming online to replace the ones that are coming to the end of their life. We didn't invest in some North Sea gas, and we need to move away from fossil fuels. But gas is going to be very important for a long time because it fills the gap when the wind isn't blowing or when the sun isn't out. We didn't invest in the North Sea to the extent that we could have done, which left us very dependent on Europe. And of course, when the European price shot through the roof, we were caught as much as anybody else by that. We do need some investment in our wires. If we're building a lot of offshore wind, we need a lot of new wires to carry that electricity to where it's going to be needed. And all these are big, big ticket items.
They're not easily solved or quickly anyway. Just on the North Sea issue specifically, we talk a lot about why haven't we done more in recent years to make ourselves energy independent and invest in North Sea energy. But, wouldn't that just be giving more money to BP and to Shell, which they then sell overseas, and we'd still have to then be buying it back? It wouldn't have put us in any more of a secure position.
Well, broadly that's right, but there are two things. So firstly, because it's closer to our market, then delivering that oil and gas into the UK is cheaper because you don't have the transportation cost. And secondly, anything which is bringing new supplies onto the global market will have a downward pressure on prices. Not enormous, because it would be a relatively small player. So it's not entirely the case to think that that degree will be there. But through the licences which are offered, it might be possible to put a special clause in new licences for North Sea exploration, which does direct the output towards the UK market.
Malcolm, answer this for me. This is the thing I don't understand. The energy companies, we all recognise, are making phenomenal, indecent profits out of this. It's not costing them anything. They're just making money on all of this. Why then do we, as a country, then pay for their profits? Why are we, okay, you slash VAT, but it's still coming out of the exchequer, it's still coming out of our taxes. Why are we paying and not them?
Well, I mean, first thing is the energy companies we're talking about here are not the suppliers that we buy electricity from directly. They're having a really bad time. Over 30 of those have gone bankrupt.
The suppliers?
It's the upstream. It's the oil and the gas industry. Now, that is an international business. We've already increased the tax on the licences for the North Sea very considerably, 25%, which does mean that there is more money coming out of those very heavy profits. But if you do get a single country which heavily taxes those, then all that happens is that the companies go elsewhere with their investment. We still end up paying through the nose because we're importing even more oil and gas. And if you're telling those companies you can't make money in the UK market, of course they're not going to invest in the UK market.
But there's only so many places they can go to find oil and gas. I mean, they just can't up stumps out of the North Sea and say, we're not doing it here anymore, can they?
No, you're talking about long-term investment, but long-term investment is the issue with this. Yeah. There's still enormous potential for oil and gas fracking in the States, for example. Saudi Arabia, still the main, one of the major oil suppliers, has still not really cranked up its output to the extent it might. I think it's playing a waiting game to see what happens. And so there are plenty of places where, you're quite right, not overnight, but in the 15, 20-year investment horizon with this, if that money is going to those countries, eventually those are the ones we're going to be dependent on.
Let me ask you this, as a research fellow at the Centre for Energy Policy, up until now, a lot of resistance, a lot of not in my backyard people about fracking, right? Do you think once the price really bites in the winter, that may begin to change people's minds about fracking?
I think it will. If you look at what's happened in the States with their fracking revolution, it has just been extraordinary. They are now energy independent. I don't think the potential in the UK is anything like as great in the States. They have these vast areas of land where nobody lives, where there's no political problems and where it's there. Here we do have some areas, such as the northwest of England, where we could probably frack a reasonable amount of gas. I've yet to be convinced it's actually a game changer, but there's no game changers with a problem of this sort of scale. You've got to look at anything that makes any sort of sense. And I suspect we probably will revisit fracking, but let's not imagine that that's a silver bullet.
Not the one-size-fits-all answer. OK, Malcolm, thank you. I want to bring in a GB News viewer now. Let's go to Francis Moore. He's joining us this morning from Wilton in Wiltshire. Very good morning to you, Francis. Thank you for joining us bright and early on this Bank Holiday Monday. Let's start off with fracking. What are your thoughts about that?
Why haven't we done it a long time ago?
OK.
There seems to be a big battle in government between the net zero team and those that want to put our economy on a sensible footing. And at the moment, I can't see a way through it, because although both candidates have said that they'll allow fracking subject to local approval, we know from the battles in the past where we've had NGOs, we've had Russia, we've had various other stakeholders, including some of the petroleum companies, trying to stop fracking, because obviously that takes away from their own earnings. That's going to be a hell of a fight. Until we actually put fracking on the plate as part of a national emergency response, we're in trouble. We really are in trouble. I agree with Malcolm that, maybe it's not going to make a huge amount of difference, but actually, morale-wise, if we could actually be having our own gas coming out of our own, I think you're showing the Quadrilla site there, I think if we could have our own gas coming out, which is estimated, we could have it if we went by removing the moratorium, by January 2023, first gas, and then we could be replicating more sites. The sites themselves don't need a lot of space. There are several football fields. The geological survey information, which interestingly is being withheld by Kwasi Kwarteng, who's rumoured to be Truss's next Chancellor, which is why I think she's enveloped in the net zero team that she's inheriting from Boris. So there's going to be a lot of ugly stuff to come on top of all the very ugly stuff that we've got. But we can write, as Malcolm said, we can rewrite contracts with fracking to make it maybe a sort of a cost plus.
Well, Francis, on that, I just want anyone watching at home to come in with their views on this one. gbviews@gbnews.uk, and you can tweet at GB News. So basically, should we be reconsidering, we're asking you folks, our position, our opposition to fracking, and where does this come from? And what's it about? Now, Francis, we just want to tell people about you as a viewer and listener. You're 65 years of age, you're retired, you're on universal credit, and
member of the Conservative Party.
Yeah, but thinking not being a member of the Conservative Party, maybe, yeah?
Well, I'm going to hold in, because unless you hold a vote, you can't really change anything. But I've been very disappointed, actually, in the way that this leadership campaign has gone. It's been very repetitive, and that I don't think that's not a fault of the two leadership contenders. They have to deal with what they're given. But I think the party as a whole needs to have a considerable rethink as to whether all this is going on. But I think that the issue in the background is Boris, who's now coming out trying to firm up his legacy. He's tried to tell us that Ukraine is spilling blood. We're just having to pay the.
We're getting on to Boris Johnson, and I wanted to ask him some political questions. But, you know, it links perfectly on to our next guest, which is coming after our
we just want to say goodbye to you, Malcolm, of course, for that. Is there anything that Francis has said that you would like to say to people? I mean, I've asked people for their views on fracking and, you know, should we get real? The coalition government, of course, Cameron with the Liberal Democrats, have a lot to answer for as to why we haven't got energy security and energy independence. So there should be a lot of reflection. How will our energy policy change in the years to come? Because people feel exposed, they feel vulnerable, they're frightened.
Well, I'd say, first of all, getting carbon emissions down is vital. I think the science around climate change is unanswerable, and as a world, we do need to respond to that. The dreadful pictures we're seeing, for example, in Pakistan at the moment with the flooding, that's going to become more typical, and we need to hold that in mind. But what we are seeing today, of course, is that we need three things from energy. It's got to be secure, it's got to be affordable, and it's got to be economic. And when the chips are down, actually, it's the security that's the most important, then the economics. So unless we get those right, we can't do the environmental stuff. And that's why recognising that gas has a vital role to play as the top-up fuel for, say, when wind and solar are not generating, and recognising that if we make that gas as close to home as possible, it's environmentally better, we're not wasting energy by transporting it, and it's better for our economy to do so. Then I think that's the context we should be looking at.
Malcolm, really appreciate this. Malcolm Grimston is a Senior Research Fellow at the Centre for Energy Policy. We'll say goodbye to Francis Moore, our GB News viewer. Francis, you were just about to tell us about Boris the Goodbye Tour, which is quite narcissistic, actually, when you think about it. What else were you about to say about that?
Well, what I'm trying to say is that Boris is obviously trying to hang on to his net zero legacy. That's economically crippling this country now. We need to just row back a little bit. No one's trying to sort of deny, I don't deny there's change in the climate, but I just draw us back to all the forecasts, and forecasting climate change is very difficult. And just because we do, I accept what Malcolm's saying, but just because we have had some issues, we've had, you know, the hottest summer since 1976, which I remember very well as a 20-year-old. But the reason I remember 1976 is because there hasn't been another 1976 until now. So I think we do have to take forecasts with a pinch of salt. Although Malcolm was saying that, you know, the science is absolutely certain on climate change, well, I would actually quietly dispute that.
OK.
It's a forecast. It's a forecast.
Okay.
And if we look back even as early as, or yes, as early as a few years ago, with our COVID forecasting, look how we made a mess of that.
Although there is scientific consensus about climate change, but I don't want to get into a big climate change debate with you. Francis Moore, really good to get your thoughts this morning. Thank you for joining us from Salisbury this morning. I want to start discussing some of the political points you were making there with Dan Falvey. He's the Deputy Digital Political Editor at the Daily Express. Good morning. Welcome to the programme. Listen, really interesting, this final week of Boris Johnson with the keys to number 10, and lots of the papers speculating about what he's going to do with these last 5 working days, or 4 working days, I think it is, with the bank holiday. He's on the front of the Telegraph saying, don't give up on green energy. He's obviously making a swipe there at Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss on his proposal to get rid of the green levy. Well, quite. And also these suggestions about Sizewell C, this nuclear power plant, that he might come out and make a big policy announcement, £20 billion, which would cripple whoever takes over as his next, as the successor.
Yeah, I think if you're Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak, you might be slightly annoyed at some of the front pages today. The whole summer, Boris Johnson said he's going to make no major interventions because that's for his successor to do. And now, just days left, it appears that he is suddenly planning to make some rather big interventions. And I think both of them would be rather annoyed that they could have their hands tied over the next coming days.
But obviously he's keen to leave a legacy, and he wants that very much to be a green legacy. Interesting, I think, a lot of us were discussing this in the newsroom this morning, that pretty much probably only Boris would be a Conservative PM that could carry through these sorts of green policies. None of the others have the kind of cut-through when it comes to sort of pushing through that agenda. Do you think there's any other Conservatives that could do that?
The only interesting thing that there is when Theresa May left office, in her final days, she was the one who put into law the 2050 net zero. In her final days, she felt the need, actually, I need to have a legacy. And she looked and thought, what can I do? And it was about green agenda.
Interesting.
That was then. This is now, of course. There was no war in Ukraine. There was no turning off the gas pipeline. And it really has changed, I think, people's view. I mean, nobody, as Isabel was saying, there was very few people that would deny we're in a climate crisis. But, you know, how do you get through it? I mean, people still are going to face... I mean, I think it is scary beyond belief, energy prices. And I'm not just talking about those of us at home, domestic and whatever. If you run a fish and chip shop, if you run a restaurant, if you run a cinema, it's just like, how the heck do you actually keep the doors open? And when all of that begins to bite, I think people will be less green.
I think we're going to see in the first couple of weeks, whoever wins, we think it's going to be Liz Truss, but whether it's Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak, in those first couple of weeks, we're going to see major interventions from government. The country is crying out for it.
Yes, the country's crying out for major interventions, but the last time we did major interventions, we arguably put ourselves into the position that we're trying to deal with now. Handouts, quantitative easing, all inflationary, and all leave the country with a huge national debt, which then has to get passed down the line. And it just seems as though all that sort of war chest that we spent on COVID now needs to be found again to deal with the energy crisis, and we simply cannot do it.
And that's one of the things that Liz Truss has been very key to stress that she doesn't want to do. What she does want to do is go back to the COVID days. She says you can't have a government that permanently is propping up the economy.
But how do you pay for cutting VAT by 5%, which Sunak's team was calling the nuclear option?
So Liz Truss has said that she'd do these tax cuts, and she said that there's some fiscal headroom to do that. Economists have said, actually, the way that the economy has changed over the last 6 months means that fiscal headroom isn't as big as they previously thought. But I think in the long run, increased borrowing to get through the short term is looking like that is one of the only options that these candidates have.
Well, 5 days, 4 days, however many days you want to count it as, until the big announcement next week. A lot can change in that time, but your money's still on Liz Truss.
I think if it wasn't Liz Truss, I think there'd be an awful lot of shocked people in Westminster. It looks fairly dead certain. I think even Rishi Sunak is probably quietly knowing that he can't do it.
Oh, just a final thought. Inside the Sun, they've been speculating today that Boris Johnson this week, as part of his kind of wrap-up tour around the country, may be making his sort of laying the groundwork for a comeback if his successor is a big flop. Do you think there's any possibility that that could be the case?
I think it's very difficult to see him actually coming back. That said, there is a lot of support for him. There are lots of Conservative members who would rather he was in charge. Polling shows that if he was in a runoff between Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss, he would still win. And Boris Johnson, he loves a story. He knows that he can keep ticking this along in the background. I think Hasta la Vista at the end of his last PMQs was deliberately done just to keep that story stirring, because he knows how to make a good headline.
Thanks, Dan. Dan's the Deputy Digital Political Editor at the Daily Express. The time, 22 minutes past 6. The latest news is stacking up like this.
Unions are looking to launch coordinated strikes across multiple industries this autumn as they increase pressure over demands for higher pay. The idea will be discussed at next month's Trades Union Congress, with The Observer reporting that the country's two biggest unions, Unison and Unite, both back the plan.
West Yorkshire Police are investigating after a 16-year-old boy died after falling ill at Leeds Festival. The force says they're looking into whether he had taken an ecstasy tablet, but they believe it was an isolated incident.
NASA is to launch its new moon rocket later today. The unmanned Artemis 1 will deliver the Orion exploration capsule into the moon's orbit, with astronauts expected to walk on the lunar surface once again by 2025.
Right, a bit of levity, a bit of relaxation. We're bringing you to Northern Ireland after the break because it's the Isle Lammas Fair.
Oh gosh, he's
Boy,
been
were you
singing
ever
to
there?
me.
Were you ever at the fair at Ballycastle? Did you treat your Mary Ann to some Dulcin Yellow Man?
I know what that is.
What?
It's honeycomb.
It is, yeah.
He's been teaching me all the ways.
And Dulce is
Can't remember.
seaweed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's the Isle
Lovely.
Lammas Fair, Ballycastle. Is it going to be a good day for it? Here's the weather.
The UK is looking mostly dry and sunny, although a few showers will develop, mainly in the north. Let's take a look at the details. Well, it will be a largely sunny afternoon across the southwest, although a brisk easterly breeze will develop, especially over the moors and along the coast. Temperatures will be around the low 20s. Southeastern England and East Anglia will also see a keen breeze, which will bring in a fair bit of cloud off the North Sea. The north of Wales may see the odd shower this afternoon, but much of the country will be dry with the best of the sun in the west. The Midlands then will see a dry bank holiday afternoon, but there will be a fair bit of cloud around, especially in the east. Despite this, temperatures will remain in the low 20s. North East England is to have a rather cloudy afternoon with perhaps the odd spot of rain around. Pop over the Pennines though, as North West England will be dry with some sunshine. Western Scotland will also see some spells of sunshine this afternoon, but further east it will be cloudier. A few showers may also develop, especially over the higher ground. Northern Ireland then may also see the odd shower develop, but most will miss them and have a dry afternoon with some spells of sunshine. Temperatures here reaching 18 to 20 Celsius. Cloud will then melt away as we move towards the evening, but some showers will continue in the north, and that is how your weather is shaping up for this Bank Holiday Monday.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back at 6:27. Still to come on our programme this morning.
At 6:45, David Donaldson will be on your doorstep if your doorstep is in Edinburgh. There's also a lot of stinky bins on the doorsteps
It's really
in
shocking.
Edinburgh, and nothing's been done so far to solve that problem. You've got a view, let us know, because he'll be telling us what the locals make of all of that.
Then at 7:10, we'll have all the latest on this amber traffic warning that's been issued by the AA for today. People, of course, travelling back from their bank holiday getaways. We'll have the latest on that.
Which is why I'm working today.
Yeah, avoid the roads, avoid the traffic.
Avoid the airports, avoid the trains, avoid everything. Just watch us, stay at home and watch us. And you can join in any of our discussions, which you have been doing. You know how to do it. There it is on your screen. Steve says, how would nationalising the power industry help? They would still have to buy from the same wholesalers. Oh, this is also complicated, isn't it? It's them that are making the money, not the suppliers, and that is absolutely right, says Steve. Tony in Bury St Edmunds says, I'm a pensioner, I don't pay tax. Truss's 5% cut will give little help to anyone. I have to say I agree with you.
John Andrews says, happy bank holiday morning. Welcome back, Isabel. The A-team's back from your #1 fan. 2 wins out of 2 for Eamonn. You must be in a good mood today.
He is not too bad at all, has to be said. And also, it's our Lammas Fair Day. Ballycastle in Northern Ireland. For many years, we had a caravan.
Did you?
Had a caravan in Ballycastle.
Did you?
So we know all about the Lammas Fair, and you know, the fact that the atmosphere that it creates is one of the oldest events of its kind in the whole of Britain. And because of pandemic restrictions, it hasn't been around for the past 2 years, but it is back.
And you know who's been there? Our Northern Ireland reporter, Doogie Beattie, gets about, doesn't he? He's been in Ballycastle over the weekend and he's had a look at the opening day.
It's been running from the 1700s, and after 3 years' absence, the Lammas Fair returns with some modern twists. A fair that saw the end of the harvest and gave those in agriculture a chance to trade workers, animals and goods. It brought financial rewards to the area, and Mayor Ivor Wallace is sure that it still does.
It brings millions to the local economy, Dougie. I mean, it's so important for this area. You know, not only for the local traders, but far wider than that. There's people coming, they stay in the local area, so the Causeway Coast and Glens, they're staying in Portrush, Portstewart, Coleraine, they're travelling into Ballycastle. As well as that, just the local traders, the food suppliers, the food wholesalers, right down then to the vendors who will be here selling their wares at the fair.
Although foreign travellers are returning, it seems to be those who stayed at home during the pandemic that are helping local business.
There's a lot of people who maybe for the first time done staycations and they didn't realise what they had on their doorstep, and now they're coming back again and again. Foreign travel has certainly started to come back as well. There's quite a lot of Americans about again, and they're the ones that seem to spend £1. So yeah, I think this area has done fairly well.
The fair now stretches over 4 days, and day 1 was all about horse trading, with animals being paraded through the town, then raced on the beach. And Joan Laverty has introduced us to her special friend.
Oh, the Lammas Fair is great. Great for Ballycastle town. This is Albert. He's a big Belgian draft. He's 13 years old. And everybody we've been talking to today wants him to win.
It is hard not to see the beauty of the Antrim coast, but as the summer comes to an end, we will await to see how many events give the public purse a worthwhile return. Doogie Beattie, GB News, Ballycastle.
Fantastic. It's one of the great fairs. So Isle Lammas means the Isle Sheep Fair. A lammas is a sheep.
Didn't see a single sheep in that, did we? It was all horses and fiddles.
An ancient Gaelic name.
Did you ever learn to play the fiddle?
No, unfortunately I didn't. I can't read music. I wish I could, and I wish I was
There's nothing
instinctive
quite like
about
it, though, is there? To light up a room and...
Just that's exactly what it does. It just makes people foot stomp, and you know, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I think learning a musical instrument, reading in the papers today, if you did, could boost your brain power for life, and certainly I think boosts your popularity.
Well, apparently there's been a study of Scottish octogenarians, and it shows those that learnt an instrument in early life had better cognitive skills in their 80s, which I think is really interesting, because I'm at this stage where I'm thinking, should I get my children to learn to play an instrument? But I think they should probably master writing first before I introduce any more elements.
Yeah.
But if they're anything like me, I love singing, I can play the piano, but nobody else enjoys it. Just me.
My kids all learned the recorder, but
Oh.
you think you want to do it. I mean, piano is a beautiful instrument. I'd love to be able to play a guitar.
Yes.
And then I could sit there and just do Johnny Cash renditions.
I had a boyfriend who could play guitar, and that was the main reason I went out with him. He would just strum to me. And
He strummed you, did he? Did he? That must have been nice. Some people call it other things, but anyway. I'm sure your husband would be delighted to know how well your previous voice strummed you.
It's got to 6:33 and you're going again. Anyway, we're going to take a break. After that, we're going to go through the papers. Nigel Nelson, Sam Lister joining us in the studio for that. Strumming as in, you know, playing the guitar.
I didn't think anything else. Of course it was.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good to see you again just after 25 to 7. News-wise, here's the situation.
Nearly 25% of adults plan not to turn their heating on this winter, according to a new poll. The Savanta Comrades survey found that goes up to 27% for parents with under 18s. It comes as the energy price cap is set to rise by 80% by October.
Liz Truss's campaign says she favours targeted support to ease the cost of living rather than help for all. However, the Tory leadership candidate says she's not ruling anything out as the contest enters its final week.
The Notting Hill Carnival has returned after a 2-year break due to the pandemic. More people are expected to attend the festival for a second day today. Yesterday, 38 arrests were made for alleged offences, including assault and possession of offensive weapons.
The papers, so you can read all about it. Well, they've read all about it. We've got two political editors. The political editor for the Daily Express, that is Sam Lister, and the political editor from the Sunday Mirror and the Sunday People, Mr. Nigel Nelson. Nigel, it's the front page of the Times. We're going to feature, first of all, half of Conservative voters want energy companies to be nationalised.
Yes, and quite right too. It's 40% of them, and it goes up to about 53% in red wall seats. And that won't provide an answer to the problem we're facing at the moment. But in the long term, I think it's probably right that if you have a public service which is there for the public good, it should be in public control. And I think that applies to trains, buses. It would be much better if the state was in charge rather than private business, and then it would become a completely not-for-profit operation for the benefit
Except
of all
they'll
of us.
scream that they're not making profit, and it's the energy, I don't know the difference here, the energy, they are the energy suppliers, so it's the energy producers apparently are making all the money, the people that get the oil and gas.
The wholesalers, the wholesalers, basically, yeah. So, you're absolutely right. At the moment, obviously, that they're not making anything out of it. So it's the wholesale gas prices that are the problem, which leads to the price cap and the mess we're in at the moment. So it wouldn't change the way you actually buy your energy, but it might change the way that it's distributed. And it just seems to me, if you've got nationalised industries, they're actually operating on behalf of the public.
Well, but do you, though? I mean, we look at the state of the NHS, and we had Malcolm Grimstone, the energy expert, this morning, saying that then it would be going into competition with other services that the government is trying to fund. And if they were to buy out the energy companies at this point when they're extremely wealthy, that would be the most expensive time to renationalise them. It would cost taxpayers a great deal of money to be buying them out.
Yes, it would. And I'm not suggesting we do this tomorrow. I think you've got to get over this particular crisis now. I just think as a principle, that is the way forward. And it is really interesting because normally Tories are against this kind of thing. Margaret Thatcher was very popular when she privatised all the utilities back in the 70s and 80s. So it's not something for now, but the idea that people are moving towards it means it could be something for the future.
Right. Is Sam Lister something for the future? Green energy. Johnson's sticking his nose in this week and he's basically saying, don't give up on green energy. Easy for him to say. He won't have to deliver on the policies and how this is pinching people's pockets. But a brave statement, don't give up on green energy.
Yeah, and like you say, he doesn't have to deliver it. So you can't, he doesn't have to make this happen. Liz Truss, she says she's committed to the net zero target of 2050. But she's been very clear that she doesn't want to clobber people in the process. And obviously, all the kind of low-hanging fruit has already been picked. And so you do get into the more difficult areas where you're trying to make people have heat pumps and things like that. And also, it does cost people money. So, but I think there is always this fundamental problem, isn't there, where actually governments are very short-term. He is talking about the long term. We do need to think about the long term. We do need to look at nuclear. He's talking about nuclear. Wilverby, for example, in North Wales, 15 years ago, they were talking about creating Wilverby, which is a new nuclear power station in North Wales. They're still talking about it. Now, governments, this is the problem. Governments last 4 to 5 years, they're only ever thinking about the short-term issues. But I think on the wider point, the 2050 target, I think it's very hard to sell it to people in this country when you've got China on 2060 and not even a committed target, a kind of loose aspiration to meet 2060. I don't think people here want to go through the pain when they can see other countries like China.
Well, there is going to be pain, and green taxes are part of that pain. I don't think, Nigel, people even realise what pain could be in store for them. And Isabel and I were talking during the break. It is businesses and services and high street and takeaway companies and cinemas and restaurants and goodness knows what. How do these people afford their bills? Because when they can't afford to turn on their deep fat fryers and their ovens and whatever, that's suddenly going to dry up a lot of options.
That's right. And the trouble there is, of course, their energy bills aren't capped at all.
It's nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, so they're paying full price for that. And if, you know, there was a pub mentioned yesterday where they've been paying 15p a unit for their energy, and it now goes up to 97p.
Yeah.
So this kind of thing will put them out of business. So when it comes down to the support that comes through, it's not just for individuals. You've got to start doing that support for business as well. The question, obviously, is the best way of doing it, whether you do it through VAT, whether you do it through business rates. But certainly, they're going to need a helping hand. I mean, we're in a kind of COVID-style emergency now, and the same kind of money is going to have to be pumped out to go and deal with that.
But we're also dealing with the consequences of having dished out those huge wadges of cash during that crisis.
Yeah.
And you just think we're just kicking the problem further down the road for the next generation. It really is. In my lifetime, I can't remember a time really more sort of worrying when you look to the future. I do think on the whole net zero thing, I think it could be one of the silver linings of this whole crisis, though, that actually as people decide, tragically, that they may not be able to heat their homes this winter, there could be some unintended green consequences that come out of all of it.
Well, there are things like, I remember in the 80s, there was this whole thing about lighting up buildings in city centres, you know, leaving showrooms lit up of a night and lighting up the front on, and you actually got a grant from the government to put floodlights on the front of your building. I mean, bear in mind, this didn't happen in the 70s and in the early 80s, so therefore we could get used to. There's so many things we're overindulgent in, we're soft with, and we don't need to be doing it.
I mean, I have a smart meter, and I have to say it does work, because when you look at it ticking round, it's terrifying, and it does make you go round and unplug things.
Well, when you see, I put the toaster on, and my smart meter suddenly goes into the red. Yes.
And the washing machine, you know,
the dryer, unbelievable.
Yeah,
I also heard a crazy case study talking about businesses that can't, obviously they don't have this price cap. Over the weekend, I think it's in Essex, producer of peppers that we all eat and enjoy, and they have all these greenhouses that they have to heat throughout the winter. It costs them £900,000 a year per winter to heat. They make a profit of 5 million, so about 1 million of it goes on their heating bill. That's going to now go up to 15 million. Simply cannot afford to get through the winter.
Right, Sam. We're going to be talking about sewage here, and this is another farce. These utility companies, these water companies. The head of Britain's Environment Agency says, so he's on the government side, right? And he says, we've got to get used to drinking recycled loo water.
Oh, it's very yucky. What? I don't want to put your viewers off watching this morning, but, you know, this is Sir James Bevan, he's the head of the Environment Agency. He says that actually the severe temperatures we've had this summer, if we have a particularly bad winter as well, the drought's going to go on for quite some time. But he's talking more long-term, actually, and he's saying this is something we're going to have to sort out. And one of the options he puts forward is to recycle, you know, essentially loo water.
I mean, isn't all water essentially recycled?
I'm sure it is. This is a more direct way from your loo to your tub. I'm not quite sure of the science.
Well, I'll tell you something. We have the greenest garden in our street, and I'm sure I'm going to be arrested for it or something. And we have sprinklers and things. It's all brown water. It's all recycled water. It all goes into a big tank every time it rains, and then when we want, we can spray it around the garden. But otherwise it'd be water that would have gone to waste. The trouble with Mr. Head of the Environment Agency, what he should be concentrating on is there hasn't been a single reservoir dug in this country for 31 years. Number one, so if you dig a hole, you catch water. And there's lots and lots of water that's wasted and drains off. And all those people who say, not in my backyard, why would you object to a reservoir? There's a lot of people object to reservoirs in their area, but I would have thought
they're lovely.
Boats, recreational.
Well, he actually makes the point that about exactly what you said, and he says actually the Environment Agency is shifting its position now to be pro-reservoir.
Yes.
So we've had this decades of no reservoirs being built. Now they're saying actually reservoirs are the right thing to do. It's actually good for wildlife. It's obviously good for water supplies. And you think these things come in and out in fashion, you know, it's just
turn
crazy,
the lights off. Dig some reservoirs. Sorting the world's problems this morning.
Is it, we put the question out there, is it what we really need? It's not a democracy, but a benign dictatorship.
Done by Eamonn.
You know, like Dubai or something, where they say, we're going to have a road through there, and they just do it. It happens. And
make James Bevan drink the first glass of lavatory water, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, the idea of it. We all have moobs, Nigel, because of estrogen in the water.
No, that's not why men have moobs.
Is that right? Is that, I didn't know that was the cause. I thought just old age.
It's a good excuse.
No, look, I just pulled this out of my pocket here, right? I am a man that carries cash.
Oh, don't tell everyone that.
My father...
on the way home.
My father carried cash. I always have cash. Ruth likes me because of the size of my wad. I always have a wad of cash, which makes me attractive, apparently. Now, I find that I carry it. I'm having less need of it, but I carry it to pay, when I'm abroad especially, to tip people, taxi drivers and all that sort of thing. But the idea, Nigel, is now that we are moving at a very fast rate towards a cashless society.
Yes, and according to the Express, that campaigners reckon we'll be there by 2027, which is just around the corner. So we've all used less cash since the pandemic. We all started using our card. And the real problem with that is that you start not getting access to cash anymore if you don't use it. So the ATMs are disappearing. It's much more difficult to find it. Like you, I carry cash around, and it seems to stay in the wallet for an awful lot longer than it used to. The difficulty really is for people who are the elderly and the vulnerable. If you want to keep control of your finances, much easier to do it with a wad of cash, which you can see how it disappears, than clicking a credit card constantly on a machine. I've no idea what I spend during a day, because by the end of it, I've done the credit card, and then, it comes as a surprise that suddenly an awful lot of money has disappeared. Yeah. But you don't check along the way, if you're doing with a credit card, wad of cash, you'll know how much you're losing.
Except then you're taken by surprise, Sam, that you then go to get a haircut at the Turkish barber. They take nothing but cash, none of them, only cash, or the kebab shop. I mean, I've often brought Mrs.
I don't go to either very often.
Well, my wife is a bit intoxicated,
at the same time.
and she comes back from a function. A woman whose body is a temple, suddenly when she's got a few drinks in her, she goes, I want a kebab.
She's pointed this one out to me. Is it in Putney or something? I can't remember where it is, the kebab shop of choice.
It's in Fulham.
Fulham,
yes, near Putney.
We really know Ruth's secrets.
And the thing is, she's always, I could have a kebab. The only time you can get a kebab is with cash as well.
But I have to say, I very rarely use cash. I am one of those...
You don't eat kebabs then?
I don't eat kebabs.
No?
But, well, maybe on a night out, but, I'll find somebody else to pay for it for me. I only ever really use my cards. I did have occasion this summer to try and get some cash, a bag of 20p's I was after for various tedious reasons. And I went into the local bank and they said, we don't keep change. We only have notes. Yeah. And that was an actual bank. They don't even have cash. Yeah. So,
There's a tedious reason, whatever you're going to explain to me. People try and get rid of 20p's. Yeah. They save them up and put them in a bank. You're the only person I know that's looking to get them back the other way.
We had a little camping holiday in Devon and you needed 20p's for the campsite, for the showers.
That's a lovely story.
But I just wanted to know why. Very good, very good.
Right, can we talk about Princess Diana, Sam? This is a story in the front of the Mirror. I feel maybe I should go to you, Nigel, as it's one of yours. But let's talk about this. The Diana death car owner says he wants his £10 million limo back.
It's oh, blimey, you do think, poor Princess Diana, it's the anniversary this week of her death and still people are trying to make money out of her. Yeah. Essentially, the owner of the limousine company, the car that was involved, he thinks the limo is worth £10 million. He says he wants it to go into a US museum as a kind of mark of
that
honour.
Heap of scrap that literally where she lost her life.
Yeah. I mean, who would want to go and see that? I just think that's so macabre. And the fact that he wants to kind of sell it off and make this money, I just think, let her rest in peace, blimey.
And her Ford Escort sold for what, 350, 350,000?
I think it was 650, wasn't it?
650 was a huge amount of money anyway.
Over the weekend.
Over the weekend.
Yeah,
for that.
But it's 25 years on, people are still making money out of Princess Di or trying
Awful.
to.
Guys, thank you very much indeed. We say goodbye to Nigel and Sam. They're going to be back in 40 minutes' time because now it is time for your bank holiday on your doorstep.
And this morning, our Scotland reporter, Davy Donaldson, is in Edinburgh for us. A very good morning to you, Davy. What are you up to this morning?
Yeah, good morning, Isabel and Eamonn. I have to say this is not going to be nice viewing for the viewers because I'm standing here just off the Royal Mile surrounded by rubbish because we're in the middle of a 12-day strike. So that's just coming to an end today. As you can see here, the rubbish is continually piling up, and this isn't the worst of it, I have to say, because I was down the Cowgate earlier on today on the way here, and I can say it only resembles a war zone. So that's really what it looks like. I'm just going to have a chat here to one of the owners of the shop here, Victoria Regalia. Just come in here, just give us 1 second. Just come forward a second. Good morning. Hiya, this is Nilesh Raval. Nilesh, what's it been like having to put up with all this rubbish?
It's not a good sight, especially with the festival season going on and a lot of tourists in town. It doesn't give a good impression of the capital city of Scotland.
Well, exactly, and you know, what have other shop owners said about it?
Well, I mean, fortunately, we are not in a restaurant trade, but all the restaurants around us, I mean, it doesn't look a good sight when people are sitting outside with the bins all over the place.
And there's a health problem as well, because you look at that rubbish piled up, we've seen seagulls all over the rubbish. No doubt there's going to be rats in there as well.
Yes, yes, it's a health issue, it's a smell issue. Fortunately, the weather hasn't been so hot, but if it was hotter weather, the smell would be awful.
And hopefully something can be done in terms of finding a resolution to the whole strike process, because it's going to spread across Scotland as well.
Well, we are in peace times, as I say. It doesn't look like we are in peacetime when it comes to the bins. We should be living in a civilised society where people do their duties diligently, and we will not get these issues.
Well, thank you very much for joining us there. Yeah, there we go. Nilesh Pavel there, obviously talking very much about the bin problem here. You can certainly smell it, there's no doubt about that, because we're standing outside. We've been standing outside earlier on for about 20 minutes, and the smell, quite frankly, is overwhelming.
And it's just very, very sad, and it's, you know, that it hasn't been resolved, because they'll have to come to a settlement sometime with that, Davy, won't they? Is there any news about progression on that?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we've had 4 days of talks, and we've gone into the 5th day this morning between the unions. So, you know, hopefully something can be resolved. Although, from what I'm hearing, certainly on the union side, is that, you know, there's some way away from cutting a deal. So this is going to spread. It's already going to start in Glasgow and the West Lothian and further afield. So the problem is going to spread across Scotland unless this is resolved, and it doesn't look like there's any sign of that happening.
David, thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Davy's on your doorstep. He's in Edinburgh. Where are you going to be next time we see you?
I'm going to be at Meadowbank Sports Centre in Edinburgh. It's just been done up after a multi-million-pound refurb.
Looking forward to it. Good stuff, Davy. Thank you very much indeed. You know what? There is nothing worse than trying to walk down the street when there are heaps of stinking rubbish. And it doesn't take long before you see the big, fat rats running around, and the seagulls and whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you get the maggots as well, especially in the heat. Well,
it's plastic bags that encouraged all of that. I mean, we didn't used to put rubbish in plastic bags. Now they're left out in the street. The foxes rip them open, the dogs rip them open, cats rip them open, and then it's just Armageddon, really, after that. On the energy situation, fracking, says Parker, is a must. It needs to be set in motion now, and no matter what the residents in the Northwest think, this is a national crisis, and therefore it needs a national response.
Yeah, lots of people emailing in about fracking. Bruce Wilson says fracking, we should have already exploited our own gas supplies. It's a no-brainer. We need our own supplies as an interim for security reasons. Mike Workman says, having lived in the South Wales Valleys for more than 70 years, it is only recently that the scars of the legacy of coal mining are healing. This beautiful land was seriously scarred by the need to provide for the country's need for coal. The impact of fracking is nothing compared to what we, the people of South Wales and other British coal mining areas, have had to endure for generations. The nation's need is paramount.
OK. Anybody going to the Lammas Fair today? If you are, we've already featured it. We've been there already this morning. We're going to talk about it again at about 10
You had a caravan there, didn't you, as a child?
Or static home, we like to call it.
Which you didn't sleep in. It was just for the day tripping.
No. Oh,
okay.
For lots of things.
You didn't stay in it, though.
I did stay in it.
You told me that you didn't.
I didn't stay in it often. It was for my parents, basically, but
okay.
the family gathered around it, and it was lovely. There was a lovely little community in the caravan park, and the scenery around Ballycastle, the geology of the whole area.
What was that cliff called you were telling me about?
Fairhead Sill.
Fairhead Sill.
Fairhead Sill. Anyway, we're going to take a break there, and after that we're going to have more on the energy crisis as the Conservative leadership, thank God,
Only 1 week more.
Its final week. Here's your bank holiday weather.
The UK is looking mostly dry and sunny, although a few showers will develop, mainly in the north. Let's take a look at the details. Well, it will be a largely sunny afternoon across the southwest, although a brisk easterly breeze will develop, especially over the moors and along the coast. Temperatures will be around the low 20s. Southeastern England and East Anglia will also see a keen breeze, which will bring in a fair bit of cloud off the North Sea. The north of Wales may see the odd shower this afternoon, but much of the country will be dry with the best of the sun in the west. The Midlands then will see a dry bank holiday afternoon, but there will be a fair bit of cloud around, especially in the east. Despite this, temperatures will remain in the low 20s. North East England is to have a rather cloudy afternoon with perhaps the odd spot of rain around. Hop over the Pennines though, as North West England will be dry with some sunshine. Western Scotland will also see some spells of sunshine this afternoon, but further east it will be cloudier. A few showers may also develop, especially over the higher ground. Northern Ireland then may also see the odd shower develop, but most will miss them and have a dry afternoon with some spells of sunshine. Temperatures here reaching 18 to 20 Celsius. Cloud will then melt away as we move towards the evening, but some showers will continue in the north, and that is how your weather is shaping up for this Bank Holiday Monday.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Liz Truss considers the largest ever cut to VAT to tackle soaring bills as the Conservative leadership contest enters its final week.
Hello there, very good morning to you. It is 7 o'clock, Monday the 29th of August, a bank holiday Monday, and you're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn Holmes, and back from her holidays, Isabel Webster.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Conservative leadership frontrunner Liz Truss is considering plans to tackle the energy crisis with a massive 5% cut to VAT, as polling reveals more than half of Tory members want energy renationalised.
The outgoing Prime Minister will reportedly use his final week in office to tour the country, with sources suggesting he will make a final major policy speech before stepping down 7 days from now.
An amber traffic warning's in place for today as millions of drivers will be hitting the roads at the end of the bank holiday weekend. The AA has advised travellers to carry food and water in the event of severe delays.
You can join any of our discussions, and you've been doing that. Energy bills basically preoccupying this morning. We've been talking about that. We're going to be talking about that next as well. Energy prices, Alan says, will have us switching back to real fires to keep warm. That's not green. And if we want to be energy independent, then hydroelectric is the future. Goodness knows, Alan, I don't know who has the answer, but I hope somebody has. You know what to do. Join the conversation. You can email or tweet.
So our top story this hour, Conservative leadership frontrunner Liz Truss is reportedly considering a radical slashing of VAT by 5% in order to help voters to cope with the worsening cost of living crisis.
Now, this comes as politicians scramble to think of suggestions to help elevate or alleviate, even I think the word should be.
Not elevate it.
Although it's spelt elevate there, as you see, alleviate the worst of the energy price increases, with the Labour leader calling on the Prime Minister to cancel the energy price cap increase. Now, we've got Malcolm Grimston in the studio room. Malcolm is the Senior Research Fellow at the Centre for Energy Policy and Technology at Imperial College. And Mike, you're the man who's got people talking today, because you've already been on after 6 o'clock this morning. So Boris Johnson's going to have a say. Keir Starmer's having a say about cancelling the price cap. What would you like to add to that conversation, Malcolm?
I mean, the problem is the price cap's in the wrong place. The price cap is between the supplier and the consumer. And as we've seen, more than 30 of the suppliers have gone bust because the price cap meant that they were facing higher costs. They still had to buy gas and electricity, but they couldn't pass those costs on to their customers. And any business which can't charge at least as much as it's having to pay for its basic material obviously goes bust. There's no two ways around it.
We are highlighting, and we are referring to, when you talk about any business that can't pay that, we're talking about the entertainment industry. We're talking about people who
farming,
pubs,
agriculture,
restaurants, farming. So many. I mean, there's so many areas, and you're going to look and say, how on earth could they possibly be expected? Why haven't they got a price cap? And surely somebody's going to have to do something about that.
Well, the reason the price cap was introduced was that some domestic consumers didn't feel confident in shopping around and using the market, and they ended up on higher tariffs than people who shopped around, the way markets work. So the price cap was specifically introduced to help those people. They tended to be the least well off and those with the least personal resources. The idea was that in the business world, all companies are very savvy about how to save energy. They know how to shop around. So you don't need a price cap because the market should deal with it.
Well, they need it now.
Well, the whole thing falls apart when you've got a situation where energy is going out at levels that we are at the moment. The price cap is no longer a cap. It's the energy price. Nobody can find any deal in the market below the price cap. So that's not a cap anymore. That's a regulated price. And because it was never needed before in industry and businesses, it hasn't evolved there. Now, clearly, this is why. I mean, one of the things with this will remind us just how central energy is to everything we do. It's not just our energy bills. All our food bills go up if it costs more money for fertilisers that rely on natural gas, or to transport the food from where it's grown to where it's needed, or to run farm equipment. The hospitality business, as you mentioned, enormous costs there. They've got to keep their places warm and attractive, particularly during the winter months, or cool during the summer months. We kind of forgot how central energy was, because for a long time it wasn't much of an issue. And if this actually reminds government that you need to do some serious long-term planning over a long period to prevent this happening, that'll be a good thing to happen, but that doesn't.
The front of the Mail, I was actually looking for it. We don't seem to have one in front of us here, but they're talking about the cost of trying to heat hospitals also going up exponentially. In that bill having to be put, and schools, and whether or not children will also be coming to school
care homes,
freezing and hungry, and whether or not that's going to be a good learning environment. I mean, the problems, as you say, right across the board, the resolutions to all of this really difficult to work out. All the low-hanging fruit, as Sam Lister was describing, has already been taken. So whatever steps are taken, probably going to be very difficult and have positives and negatives. What about this 5% cut to VAT? I mean, Rishi Sunak has said that could be inflationary. He'd prefer to target it specifically at energy bills. But as you said earlier, they're already at 5% VAT. Yes,
I mean, we charge a lower rate of VAT on domestic energy, 5%, as opposed to 20% on VAT generally. And I think what Ms Truss is talking about is a reduction of the general VAT rate. But my own view is that we really have to, at this moment, rather than looking at tax cuts across the board, which will help people like me, frankly, I'm in a very fortunate position. I'm in a weird position. I'm on a 2-year deal with my energy. So I'm still paying what I was before the crisis, but I'm still going to get £400 off my energy bill. That's not good practice there. So rather than looking at it in terms of cuts or even in terms of capping the price, I think the real focus needs to be on putting money into the pockets of the people who are going to suffer the most. Now, of course, there is the wider issue. This isn't just about energy, as we're saying, and measures to help people on other inflation is probably there. But ultimately, my view is it's the benefit system that's going to bring us through the next year and a bit until things begin to normalise. Then we can look again.
I'd like Malcolm to bring in a retired viewer and listener, Eric Twigg, now from Sandhurst in Berkshire. And there's where he lives, there's where he is in the country.
Sandhurst, of course, famous, isn't it, for training all of our military army officers. So I don't suppose you're from a military background, just happen to be neighbouring it there. But welcome to the programme. Very good morning to you.
Welcome, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
So, Eric, how's all of this affecting you? Listening to Malcolm there, how scary is the prospect of big fuel bills?
It's scary. It's scary for everybody to see the announcement on Friday when basically energy has gone up for most of us, Malcolm, from £1,200 last year to 3,600 going forward into the winter. It's scary for everybody, and I really worry for the people who are on low incomes or who haven't got any savings behind them, how they're going to pay for it. I mean, I think that the government has been, I can't think of the real word for it, but very poor in not having a plan in place to come out immediately after the price cap increase was announced on Friday. I think that Sunak and Truss and Johnson should have got together over the last 2 months or so when they knew this was coming along to actually have at least have got some plan in place, because it is causing what you were talking about earlier. 25% of people are planning not to put their central heating on. I mean, that is going back to the 50s, where I remember growing up in Yorkshire, where frequently during the winter we had to scrape ice off the inside of bedrooms to...
You must have been advanced in Yorkshire. I was doing that in the 70s in Belfast, so you must have been very ahead of your time there. Listen, let me ask you this. You've done something that I would be very interested in, Eric. You've had solar panels installed. Now, I think about this and I think there's a part of our roof that the sun shines on all the time.
Do it.
And I think, oh, how much would this cost and would it be worthwhile? I mean, what's your experience of solar panels?
My experience of solar panels has been tremendous. I started on this route about 20 years ago, but we moved into a new house in 2010, and I put in solar panels, an air source heat pump. Wow. I improved the insulation in my house, which is 100 years old, and it has made a huge difference.
Tell me about your air source heat pump specifically.
I was fortunate in the fact that I could take advantage of the 25-year solar panel grant that was around at that time. But basically, despite that, it cost me a lot of money. Then in 2010, all those measures cost £35,000, which, you know, in today's money is probably £50,000. But that's an eye-watering sum for most people. But I got payback within 7 years. So from that point of view, I am sitting pretty.
Well, let's bring in Malcolm here, because energy is his thing, energy policy is his thing. Eric was a bit ahead of his time here. But even the cost that he's talking about, because of the increased bills, you'll get it all back much sooner, won't you?
Yes, I mean, you should bear in mind, as he was saying there, that there were enormous subsidies for solar. So this was very good for the people who got the panels at that time, not so good for other electricity consumers who were supporting it. And the solar industry got its PR wrong. It started saying we're the cheapest source of energy available. And the government said, OK, well, we'll stop subsidising you. Of course, at that point, you start to realise that it's not quite as simple as that. But all of these things have a part to play. I think heat pumps, it's very good to get that mentioned here. I think they're going to have a big boost. We're seeing an enormous uptake just in the last few weeks of people interested in solar panels.
I'm really glad you mentioned those, and presumably from what you're saying, you are in favour of them. I just want to hear what Eric's experience of an air source heat pump that you've installed in your home has been. Because there's been lots of discussion about this being the future, that people need to invest in these, and it will, it's green and it saves money long term. How much did that specifically cost you, and how have you found it? Has it been efficient, and are you a fan?
Well, yes, I am. Sorry, the figure of £35,000 was the air source heat pump, the extra insulation, and the solar panels. So within that, the heat pump, because we had to have some other work done as well, was about £18,000.
Okay,
the solar panels were about £14,000 at the time, and the rest was made up of the other things. But apart from at the time, because the installers weren't really aware to what to do, there was a big problem. Once we got the problem sorted out, it has worked. I won't say seamlessly, because nothing works seamlessly, but it's worked really well. But those are the big ticket items. But I'd like to just mention a couple of other things.
Got to do it quickly. Eric.
12 months ago. Right. It's that I have saved yet an extra 10% from my electricity by putting in very, very simple, cheap things like putting curtains across the doors, putting blackout linings on all the windows, and making sure that the curtains are closed in the evening as the sun goes down, to retain as much heat within the property as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that people could do very, very, very cheaply.
I know, but you know what, Eric? I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people will not
save 10% of my bill.
He's on a heat pump, I'll tell you. Eric, I think a lot of people won't do this because I think they're mollycoddled. I think they're spoiled. I think they're soft.
I agree.
And as Isabel says, they're used to their lifestyle.
But we're on a war footing. Boris Johnson was writing in a paper yesterday saying this is all because of what Putin is doing in the Ukraine. He's relishing seeing us all suffering as a result of this. And we have to get a war mentality. We have to sort of, do our sort of war thing. And as you say, close those curtains and do what we can.
Eric,
absolutely.
Hold that thought.
One point,
hot air.
One
point quickly.
Yes, we as individuals have got to do, as Isabel was saying, we have got to do our bit. See where the waste is in our house and do something about it. And you will save hundreds of pounds. I'll stop now, OK?
No, I'm with you, Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Thank you
very much
Bye.
indeed. He's the GB News viewer. He's the energy man. He's Eric Twigg. He's got solar panels. He's got a heat pump. He's got...
I don't have any of those, but I'm with them anyway.
Around the house.
Yeah, I do think we've got to do our bit. There's that real feeling of...
Yes, but I could say within my house, I could quite happily... I don't need heat. I genuinely could put a blanket over my shoulder. I don't. I'm a warm person, by and large. But not everybody in my house would be so amenable about that.
No.
And they will have heat and light on and all sorts of things because they're weak and puny. Do you not think so?
You know me, I'm always cold. So I do need heat, but I do have a onesie that is, it's from Norway, it's a Norwegian brand, and I haven't worn it in our new build house for a long time. My husband said when we move house to a house that's poorly insulated, I'll be living in it again.
Yes.
Not putting the heating on.
I've got a beautiful outdoor coat that has tin foil on the inside of it. It's like it's got silver.
You'll be wearing that in your armchair of an evening.
I'm very happy.
But that's the sort of thing that people will start doing.
My wife would walk in and say, "What are you doing? Look at the state of you." I'm very happy also to sit in my car. There's nothing as nice. I could go into my driveway, sit in my car.
Oh, no.
There's light all around you. The sun comes through, heats it up. You have the most beautiful, comfortable armchair to sit in.
Like an old person at the beach. Just need a
That's
thermos flask.
That's what she says. But anyway...
Speaking of cars...
Malcolm, thank you very much indeed. Malcolm Grimston, Senior Research Fellow at the Centre for energy policy.
Always very wise.
You're falling into a bad habit since you've been away. You
What have I
forget
done
to
that?
thank guests. That's about the third time you've done that today.
Have I forgotten? I think it's just because...
Or you're just rude.
Well, possibly.
What?
I've been in France. I've picked up some of the French ways.
Tell us more about your strumming stories.
Oh, no. No. How do I reference
Isabel
this?
was telling me when she was much younger, she had a boyfriend that
He used to strum to me.
strummed together, they used to say. Anyway, so you were going to tell us about the roads.
I was going to tell you about the roads. You were talking about how lovely and comfortable your car is. Well, people maybe have to spend a little bit more time in their cars than they would like
I don't fancy sitting on the
today.
M25 in it, no.
Yeah, the AA has issued an amber travel warning because, of course, it is bank holiday Monday. That means lots of people will be making their way home after the weekend.
OK, let's go live via satellite to Ellie Costello on the A1.
Oh.
Now, so this is where the A1 branches off from the the A1 to the M25. It's at Potter's Bar, where you're at, yeah? In Hertfordshire.
Yes, good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. I am on the A1 motorway. It's looking quite quiet so far. I'm not going to look down because it's actually giving me the heebie-jeebies. I'm actually holding onto this bridge for dear life. Not great with height, but yes, the M25 exit is just down there. This is one of the busiest sections of the motorway. This is a part of the A1 that's actually a motorway as well. So looking quite quiet down there at the moment, but we are expecting it to build up this afternoon. As you were just saying, the AA has issued an amber traffic warning today, and that's because it's been fantastic weather over the weekend. It's been dry, it's been sunny, meaning that lots of people have headed out onto the road. They've actually estimated that 45% of Brits have made a leisure journey this weekend. That means almost half of us have headed out on the roads from Friday to today. So it does mean that it is going to be really busy. They're expecting 1.5 million people to hit the roads today, and the focus of those traffic jams is going to be on the M25 near London. So that's just up from where we are now. Now, this is only the second time ever that the AA have issued an amber traffic warning, and that is because there are so many events taking place this weekend. We had the Notting Hill Festival starting yesterday in North London, also Carfest South in Hampshire, festivals in Reading and Leeds, and there was also the England and South Africa cricket test match in Manchester. Edinburgh Fringe up in Scotland, that's drawing to a close as well. So we are expecting all of the people that went to those events, they will be making their way back home today. It's going to be very busy, especially leaving those areas this afternoon. So do leave plenty of time if you're heading out on the roads. If you're flying home today, do leave plenty of time getting through security. 900 inbound flights to the UK have been cancelled. If that affects you, you are probably aware of that. But there are going to be many people heading home today as school starts this week, and people will be heading back, so leave plenty of time. But you will be grateful to know that 95% of national rail routes are running well today. There are a few engineering works, so do check before you travel. The general advice is leave plenty of time and make sure that you've packed your drinks and your snacks in case there are any delays.
Keep us posted, Ellie. Thank you very much indeed. As you can say, if you're going to head out, or as you can see, if you're going to head out, do it now. Get out
Yeah, it's
early.
a good time to do it.
Before 9 o'clock.
It's 7:20 coming up too. Let's bring you up to date on the latest headlines this morning.
Unions are looking to launch coordinated strikes across multiple industries come autumn as they increase pressure over demands for higher pay. The idea will be discussed at next month's Trades Union Congress, with the Observer newspaper reporting that the country's two biggest unions, Unison and Unite, back the plan.
The tennis star Serena Williams is preparing to compete in her last ever tournament as she brings her 27-year career to a close. The former world number one will face Danka Kovanic in round one of the US Open later today.
NASA will launch its new moon rocket later today. It's unmanned, it's called Artemis 1, and it will deliver the Orion exploration capsule into the moon's orbit. Astronauts are expected to walk on the lunar surface once more by 2025.
Now,
if you are a parent, the long school holidays may well have already drawn to a close or beginning to draw to a close because children are going back to school in England this week and next. But with the cost of living crisis intensifying, more and more parents are saying that school uniform has simply become unaffordable. It's even leading to uniform banks opening to try and help parents struggling with the costs. So how can you save some cash and make sure your money goes a little bit further? Let's get the thoughts of our consumer and retail expert, Kate Hardcastle. Always lovely to see you, Kate. Thanks for joining us this bank holiday. Look, this is my school uniform list for my littlest. She's starting reception next week. One child, that is, and it's a long list of uniform, blazers, PE kit, that's specific school bags, specific shoes, socks, you name it. It's not cheap, and if you've got more than one child, and they grow pretty quickly, so what can parents do to try and save some cash?
Well, I think parents generally understand the benefits, Isabel, of a uniform, and it can provide a lot of opportunity to provide in an equal measure for everyone. But if it becomes so prohibitively expensive, then it's a very challenging time. And reports are suggesting that for secondary school pupils, some of those costs can average about £337 a year. And I think it's about twofold. One, trying to get hold of your own spend to understand how you can get that uniform to go further and work for you, providing the value back. But then a hope and a plea that schools can understand that this is the time to step up. This is the time to actually, when you click onto that uniform link on their website, have a conversation about the fact that some of the parents there will be stressed out right now, wondering how they're going to be able to get the funds to be able to meet the requirements. So hopefully schools can start to, and some already do, signpost towards some of the brilliant charities, recycling and re-commerce that's out there, and maybe revisit their policies entirely. And we know we've got that government scheme being suggested in the pipeline where some of the branding might start to come off, which will really help with the costs. But if you are about to head out today, then we certainly need to visit some of the tips, and it sounds like we need to do that for you, Isabel.
As you say, although lots of schools are wising up to this, and I say my own school list is quite long, we also have a fantastic Freecycle group in our local community. So parents can post anything that they have, particular sizes, and there's a little green box outside the school and they deposit there and people can go and collect it. It works absolutely brilliantly. Yeah, there you go. That's a look at our school list. My little one has to complete for next week. But if you don't have those sorts of systems set up, what are other tips and hints that you can give us that will, help anyone that's stressed? Because according to statistics, 42% of families with children living at home regularly feel really stressed about their finances.
Absolutely. And 3/4 of parents feel pressure to buy new every single school year. So whilst we're seeing that list that looks like the Star Wars end credits there, let's think about what we can do. Firstly, some of the things we can do right now, have a conversation amongst your WhatsApp group, amongst other school friends, see perhaps who might be ready to give something away that you might be able to pick up. Can you split multi-packs across friends if it's something generic like the white polo shirts? And obviously, if you need to, there are some organisations that might be able to help with grants. Now, that might take some time, and a lot of schools are heading back this week. Scotland's already back, but it's definitely worth having a conversation with the school. As long as you look like you've done your best, I think that's all anyone can be expected of you. But some of these recycling centres are even open today, I've been told. I think then it's trying to make sure that if you do invest in a uniform, it's trying to make that go further. A couple of no-nos. Tumble drying can really make a difference if you tumble dry garments, make them very bobbly, the life doesn't last as long. Ditto fabric conditioner. So I am anti-tumble drying, anti-fabric conditioner to try and make those uniforms last longer. When it comes to getting the kids involved, it's about them understanding how to look after the uniform. So give them some pointers. I'm thinking of my own 3 here, Isabel, but not letting them just chuck off the shoes without untying them and looking after them, making sure that they polish and look after those shoes, making sure they hang the uniform when they can, and helping me to take the washers down by just blotting and taking stains off if possible each day so that it doesn't need as much in terms of a wash cycle each week. But I think it's about that sharing community. When it comes to uniforms, pretty much all of us know a sibling that are ready to hand down. So I think it's about working together with other parents on those set age ranges and working out how you can get the most life out of those logoed items, particularly like a blazer.
Absolutely. Definitely going to be doing that with the PE T-shirts. The trouble is my son's really tall and my daughter's really short for her age, so she's going to be wearing my son's PE T-shirt and it's going to look like a nightie. But what can you do? It saves some money. Kate Hardcastle, thank you. Have a lovely bank holiday. See you again soon.
Thank you, you too.
I still have my school tie.
Do you?
Do you have yours?
I don't think so.
I've had, during the 70s when
Yeah.
I was at school, they went from kipper ties, like massive kipper sort of size ties,
Right.
to sort of shoestring ties.
The skinny ones,
as
yeah.
well.
And you kept both?
I've got both, yeah.
I don't think I own a single tie anymore. Bit weird that girls used to wear ties to school, to be honest, looking back, or still do. But I mean, weird that I feel weird that I wore a tie. Anyway.
Whereas you wouldn't in your adult life.
No,
Okay.
never touched one since I was 16.
So you say. Coming up, Paul Coit will be here with all today's big stories, including the start of the US Open. Serena Williams, she's another long goodbye. She's like this leadership thing as well.
I know.
Serena Williams with apparently
Milking it for all
she's
it's
gonna be
worth.
finished. She's going to be finished this week. But anyway,
Hope she wins.
Here's your weather picture on this bank holiday Monday.
The UK is looking mostly dry and sunny, although a few showers will develop, mainly in the north. Let's take a look at the details. When it will be a largely sunny afternoon across the southwest, although a brisk easterly breeze will develop, especially over the moors and along the coast. Temperatures will be around the low 20s. Southeastern England and East Anglia will also see a keen breeze, which will bring in a fair bit of cloud off the North Sea. The north of Wales may see the odd shower this afternoon, but much of the country will be dry with the best of the sun in the west. The Midlands then will see a dry bank holiday afternoon, but there will be a fair bit of cloud around, especially in the east. Despite this, temperatures will remain in the low 20s. North East England is to have a rather cloudy afternoon with perhaps the odd spot of rain around. Pop over the Pennines though, as North West England will be dry with some sunshine. Western Scotland will also see some spells of sunshine this afternoon, but further east it will be cloudier. A few showers may also develop, especially over the higher ground. Northern Ireland then may also see the odd shower develop, but most will miss them and have a dry afternoon with some spells of sunshine. Temperatures here reaching 18 to 20 Celsius. Cloud will then melt away as we move towards the evening, but some showers will continue in the north, and that is how your weather is shaping up for this bank holiday Monday.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back at 7:30. Still to come on our programme this morning at 8:20. It's Chico time as Simon Cowell's company Psycho faces a legal challenge from former X Factor singers. We'll ask previous contestant Chico about his experience on the show.
Chico says he had quite a good experience, but you may have seen in the weekend newspapers, not everybody is saying the same. So reality shows, ITV's responsibility to reality guests as well, talking about that. 9:20, big story that we're talking about. This is disgusting. There's no other way to say this. You're looking at what is termed a puppy factory, those little beagle dogs. They're bred for use in experimentation and animal experimentation. We can show you inside the puppy farm. We can't show you the animal experimentation, which involves them being injected down their throats with things like bleach, being made to wear masks where they inhale tobacco fumes. Absolutely awful. But we in the studio have a number of people on a mission to put an end to this, and they need your help.
Yeah, get in touch with us. Be part of our conversations as always this morning. Email us gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
Here comes the sport, while Isabel has her breakfast.
Sorry, I thought I was out of vision now. I was having a bit of a slurp on my tea.
We'll look at the back pages. We're given the mirror first of all, and they're saying, goodness me, where are we going with this? Can we just see the back pages?
Hello, here we are.
Yes.
I'm just preparing a breakfast.
Are we coming to the back pages? Yes, everything's a wee bit slow this morning.
There we go.
Ants on deck.
I think it was quite nice seeing me there for a second. I don't like that.
Do you realise how many people that has frightened this morning? Children all over the land have run back to bed.
Who is that?
The headline there is they're referring to Anthony, the Ajax forward or winger. I never know, is he a forward or a winger?
He's a winger.
Isn't he? He's a winger, yeah. And so Manchester United are now in at 84 million quid for him. He better be worth it. So he doesn't want to play for Ajax anymore, but he does want to play for United. Ajax want to keep him. Conte's war cry. This is in the Express. The Spurs manager praised his players' warrior mentality after 2 goals from Harry Kane pushed them up to third in the table. They're doing very well. And Paul, you'll be the first man to echo that because they are your team.
They are my team. Beat Nottingham Forest 2-0 at the City Ground yesterday. It was not overly convincing. I thought Forest were really good.
The solid stuff, though, isn't it?
It was great, but they just couldn't score. But Harry Kane is now up to 187 goals in the Premier League.
Yeah.
He's now third on the all-time list. So you've got Wayne Rooney on 208, so who's going to catch him within the next year or so. Alan Shearer still holds the record at 260. Nothing's going to stop Harry Kane getting there. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. He's I would hate to use the phrase, but he's a goal-scoring machine.
He is a goal-scoring machine.
So a great result for the Spurs at Forest.
Is he 30 yet? Is he?
No, 29.
Yeah.
29 years old. So, no, he's terrific. So, good result for Spurs. There's talk about, I don't know if you saw the Richarlison showboating.
Aye, he loves himself up, boy, doesn't he?
You know what? He's the sort of player that you hate if he plays for someone else, but if he plays for you, you know, you love him because there's certain housery that goes on, I think is the words. And he was showboating, sort of 2-0 up. And this is the thing that a lot of professionals would say, you can't see. It's very disrespectful to the other side. So Brennan Johnson just went straight in, clattered him, and probably kicked Richarlison higher than he actually kicked the ball. And so he got his just desserts. But
was he sent
he's made
off
a difference.
For that? Was he sent off?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't sent off. I think the referee actually gave him a round of applause instead of sending him off and gave him a pat on the back.
But you know, in the 70s, we would have applauded all of that because, you know, you had your Rodney Marshes, your George Best, you know, your Charlie Georges, your glamour boys, you know, the people who could do all of this and dribble through, and it was encouraged. But managers, I don't think Conte would be too happy with that.
I don't think so. I mean, when you talk about that, I remember there's a famous clip of Rodney Marsh when he was playing in America in the 70s. He was playing for Tampa Bay Rowdies against New York Cosmos, and Pelé was playing for the Cosmos at the time.
Yeah.
And Rodney Marsh had said, you know, this Pelé's no good, you know, I can show him. So anyway, he's gone up to Pelé. He's just about to nutmeg him. So Pelé just put his foot through him and Rodney Marsh went flying about up in the air. So it's like, that's what you do if you talk about me.
That's what you do.
That's the way you treat.
Paul Pogba is making the front pages of the papers. It says, my brother in a plot to extort 11 million quid from me. A lot of people won't care because Paul Pogba's not liked.
He's not, but there's an investigation. It's an attempted extortion then by this organised gang, which Paul is saying...
Which his brother is part of.
Which his brother is part of, and it's his school... It's his old schoolmates. So I think what actually comes... Matthias is the brother. He played football here as well. He played in Wrexham, so obviously nowhere near to the standard of Paul. And there was a rant on Twitter that he did in various different languages. He's saying that there's going to be great revelations that he's going to bring out about his brother. And he said, Paul, you wanted to shut me up completely, to lie, to send me to prison. I suspect it now. It's true, my version of the facts. And it just goes on and on. So the bottom line of this is that the friends and his brother are trying to extort money out of him. Now, there's different stories that come out of this, but I think the bottom line is the fact that he didn't look after them, is that they're his friends, he should be looking after them. They're saying it's like a protection racket that's going on. So he's saying that there's going to be revelations coming out, but what those revelations are, we don't know. But
might explain
it doesn't
why he was
sound
so useless
very,
for Man United.
Very nice. But it had gone on in Manchester. It had gone on in Turin as well. So now Pogba's saying this, and he's supposed to be his brother and friends of the family as well. They're trying to extort the money from him.
Quick one on Serena Williams.
Yeah, Serena Williams, the US Open begins today at Flushing Meadow. Now, we don't know whether it's going to be Serena's very last game today or whether it's going to go on a little bit longer. So she plays Danka Kovanic, who's, I think, 80th in the world. But we don't know whether... So, what are they going to do? Are they going to prepare a video like Andy Murray had at the Australian Open when he wasn't ready to retire?
Yeah.
So they'll probably have the fireworks, everything ready. Should she lose? Should she win? Then she goes to the next round.
Aye. Could I just point out, the holder of the US Open title is...
Emma Raducanu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we not be talking about her?
Well, she plays tomorrow. So Andy Murray plays today, Serena plays today, but the whole of America will be watching Serena Williams, not Emma.
Yeah.
Whereas Emma's tomorrow, I'm really hopeful for Emma Raducanu, but since a year ago, she's not really got very far.
A lot's gone on in that year. We hope she goes far and defends her title, actually.
Of course.
At the
Absolutely.
US, Open. Thanks very much, Paul. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed. We're going to take a break there. After that, what are we doing, Isabel?
We are going through the papers. We've got two political editors to take us through those this morning, Nigel Nelson and Sam Lister. Don't go anywhere. I know. I didn't mean I know.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
That's not funny. What I said was not funny.
It was really funny.
It's meant to be deadly serious.
Sorry, welcome
back. It's not
back.
here for you to Strum me, tickle me. Why don't you tell everybody about strumming?
We were talking about playing musical instruments as a child and how, as an octogenarian, it means that your cognitive abilities are still really strong.
But that's not the main point.
Well, the point is I had a boyfriend, and I know my husband is watching, who used to strum to me.
So what was his instrument?
The guitar.
Oh, I'd love to play a guitar.
Yeah.
Johnny
so you
Cash.
could do some strumming.
I fell into a burning ring of
I
fire.
do love Johnny Cash. Have you seen that film?
Oh, of course, I've seen everything.
Walk the Line.
I've actually seen him
Have
in
you?
concert in Belfast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was this before or after his sort of,
Death?
No. Alcoholism.
Oh, it would have been right during it.
Right,
it was,
right,
it was
right,
1979.
Right.
Grosvenor Hall in Belfast. There you
Did
were.
he manage to complete the
The
concert?
Man in Black. He did. He was there with his wife.
Oh, right. So, as in June?
June Carter.
So
June Carter
that was
Cash.
after his
Yeah.
alcoholic phase. She got him on the straight and narrow, if the film is to be believed.
Yeah,
Anyway,
well.
we digress.
It was very good. Because because we were avoiding the boring bit. We've two political editors in today, but they're not boring.
They're not boring.
They're not boring. They are the political editors for the Daily Express. That is Sam Lister. Good to see you, Sam. And joining her, another political giant, the political editor from the Sunday People and the Sunday Mirror, Mr. Nigel Nelson. Very good to see you.
Sam, let's start with the page 4, actually, of The Telegraph, talking energy bills. And this is a poll that's been done, I think, by Savanta Comres, about how people plan to cope this winter if no help is provided. That's a big caveat.
Yeah.
But 1 in 4 people talking about not heating their homes.
Not heating their homes at all. And obviously, particularly if you are vulnerable, older people, obviously we know that the whole reason the winter fuel allowance was invented was because so many older people weren't putting the heating on, and obviously it's very detrimental to your health. But more generally, 7 in 10 people are planning to really cut down on their use. And actually, incredibly worrying stats here. 1 in 10 said they plan to take out a loan to cover their energy bills. And when you start getting into debt to cover your energy bills, you're in this downward spiral.
But
it's
Sam,
very hard
let me
to get
tell
out
you
of.
something. We are a nation, we're probably a world, that walks around our home in T-shirts in the middle of winter. Now, that isn't right. I mean, however way we put that, that is wastage of a massive order and indulgence.
Yeah, well, I think the stories my dad shares of when he was a child was of, the snow on the bed because they slept with the window open and, cracking the ice on the windows. And the sort of thing in my lifetime I've never really had to get used to. I'm not suggesting my children should have to go back to that. But do we need to take a bit more of a war standing in all of this, given it's all as a result of what Putin's up to in Ukraine?
Well, I mean, we're all going to have to make adjustments, aren't we? And that's the sad truth. But I think, we don't want to go back to those times, do we? You make a very good point. Why should your children have to live like that? We've advanced as a society. We don't want to be living in houses where you're scraping the ice off the windows.
But if the alternative is these huge bills.
But that is the choice, and so obviously we are all going to have to find ways to get through this.
I say one of the big growth
difficult.
industries is going to be companies that make thermal clothing.
Yeah.
I would say that's going to be very popular. Like Isabel's onesie.
Yeah, I do love my onesie. Yeah, it's a Scandinavian brand, and it's too hot to wear in my new build house, but I'm storing it for when I move house one day.
Nigel, let's talk about VAT. Is
this the answer?
Is this what?
Is this the answer to cutting VAT by 5%?
No, probably not. You already mentioned that Liz Truss is thinking about cutting VAT by 5%, and the Sun has got a bit better and suggests she might do it, cut it by 10%.
So wait a minute, it stands at what at the moment?
20.
20, and so she'll bring it down to 15, or the Sun are advocating maybe 10.
Maybe 10. And their estimate for that would be it would cost £60 billion. I mean, nowadays, these figures are just absolutely, ever since the pandemic, just completely monstrous. The problem with doing that is that it is not targeted. It goes to everybody. So if you've got some extra money, you might go out and spend it. That fuels inflation. And the whole point about dealing with the energy crisis is it's actually got to be targeted at people. So if she doesn't do that, I mean, she is talking about.
Why do you think she's so resistant to that?
I think that she started the leadership campaign based on tax cuts.
Yeah.
And that is the most popular thing with Tory members, that a lot of them won't be actually hugely affected by the rising prices. They really like this sort of Thatcherite idea about cutting taxes. So she's stuck to that, and she's trying to find different ways around to add a bit more to it.
What they don't like about Thatcher policy and what they do like, front page of the Times, half of Tory voters want energy companies to be nationalised.
That is an interesting change, because normally Tories don't want nationalisation. But yeah, I mean, I think that nationalisation would be the way forward. Obviously, we can't do it immediately, and it won't solve the present crisis.
Let's talk about China, Sam. Truss is to declare China an official threat. I mean, obviously, she's spoken a lot about China and has, you know, sort of blacklisted them before. But what will that actually change if they're declared as an official threat?
Well, this is the point. It's about going back to the strategic review, which looked at our relationship with China, Russia, and all this kind of. But really, this shows you a massive change in the Conservative Party. You go back to David Cameron's time in office. He gave President Xi a state visit. I remember he took President Xi to the pub, and they had a pint. It was all very jolly, you know, they've great relations, this golden era of relations with China. That is just so far from where we are now. Now, actually, the Conservative Party as a whole has become very concerned about China for quite some time now. She is making it very clear she'll be very hard line. The problem is that ultimately you know, as an economy, we really rely on China. If you find it very hard to buy goods now in any shop that aren't made in China.
I deliberately go and look.
It's really hard, actually, even if you wanted to avoid Chinese goods. And we import twice as much from China as we export to China. So there is a big imbalance, and it's going to be very hard to kind of tackle that.
Let's talk about bank holidays. So here we are on a bank holiday today.
All working.
Not that we would notice. But
seems like a good time for it then.
Yeah.
So the Mirror, page 2, Britain's unions are saying, and the heads of these unions are saying, look, give us 4 more bank holidays, bring us into line with Europe. Tell us more.
Well, everyone loves a bank holiday, but it comes with a cost. So the argument, this is coming from TUC and the General Secretary, Frances O'Grady, and she's making the point that we have around about 8 bank holidays a year, sometimes one extra, but it's about 8, whereas the European average is more than 12. And Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia and Cyprus have 15 each. So she says we must actually up this and get a bit more.
What are their economies like? But
well, that's a good point, because there is an economic cost to this. That when we had the 4-day Jubilee bank holiday, great though it was, that suddenly obviously production went down, and then part of the reason for low growth figures was because of the Jubilee bank holiday. So the estimate is somewhere in the region of 2.3 billion a day.
So costs.
That's what it costs in lost productivity.
It's not going to happen, is
On
it?
the plus side, of course, we all actually go out and spend money, so the leisure industry benefits.
I think the unfair thing about bank holidays is not everybody gets them. There's a difference between...
We're working.
Yeah, exactly, case in point.
But yeah, there's a difference between a public holiday, which I think more or less everybody gets them, and a bank holiday, which, you know, how many of your friends do you go out and you say, are you working on Monday? No, I'm not working. I am working. You know,
Apart from Christmas Day, I can't think of a day where everything actually stops. Even on Christmas Day, I've reported from pubs.
Yeah.
So even, you know, there's always someone
pubs
working.
are open. I mean, corner shops are open.
Yeah.
There's always something that around
Hospitals are
Christmas
open.
Day.
You know, police
Yeah,
stations are
hospitals,
open.
yeah.
So we go. Your view on that one? We all like another holiday. Can we afford it? Let us know what you think.
Sam, let's talk about this warning in the Mirror, page 13. Labour must grow a spine for workers, but it's just a question of which type of worker. Are we talking about union workers and letting members of the party go out on pickets, or is it talking about those people trying to get to work, office workers? Because they're all workers.
I mean, this is a tension, isn't it? And, you know, we've seen, obviously, with the rail strikes, how hard that hits people who are commuters. But this is Sharon Graham. She's the General Secretary of the Unite Union, obviously a key funder of the Labour Party. She has made absolutely clear since she was appointed to this role that she's incredibly frustrated with the direction that Keir Starmer has taken, his approach to unions and their relations. And I think because he was trying to reset the party after the Corbyn era, he's kind of gone to a certain kind of very centrist point, and that's caused problems with the unions. Now, she's saying it's time for Keir Starmer and the Labour Party to grow a spine. They need to be backing people who are going out on strike for pay rises. And obviously, you have to wonder, is she going to make them pay financially because they can withhold...
See, I think Labour could be prosecuted under the Advertising Standards Authority Code or something. Labour, there's a clue in the title. And if you're a working person and you're looking for a party to represent you, if you don't go to Labour, where do you go for? I mean, all this tosh the Conservatives talk about being the party for business. Well, if you're a business owner trying to run your own business, how helpful are they to you? I think you'll find not very with it. So who does stand up for the working person? Who does?
Well, that's her point. She says, look, the Labour Party was founded by the trade union movement to represent working people, and she feels like it isn't doing that at the moment. Now, if you talk to allies of Keir Starmer, what they say is actually the whole row about should they go out on the picket lines and support people, they feel it's a Conservative trap that once the front bench start going out on those picket lines, that the Conservative Party can then make great play of that in the papers and say, look, this is a party that's going to grind the country to a halt if you elect it. And that's what they're wrestling with.
Do you think, Sam, overall this country is anti-union? I certainly know that the media is anti-union completely, but I look at people like the post office workers and they get a 2% pay rise. I mean, really, wise up. You know, why wouldn't you support them? Why wouldn't you support the train workers unless it affects you directly? And I think she has a very good point. Sharon Graham has a very, very good point on all of this.
Well, I think it does really depend on how much it does affect you personally. I think if we saw like the bin strikes that you see up in Scotland at the moment, I think that would anger people. But I think actually people are probably more sympathetic at the moment than they have been in the last 30 years.
You talk about the bin strike in Scotland.
Yeah.
But it angers people that the rubbish is there.
Yeah.
But what I would say is you would have to ask people, would you do it? Would you do that job on that money? And therefore I think we should be thankful to those workers.
Yeah. And I think people are more sympathetic at this time because obviously everybody knows how everybody's going to struggle. It's not just a small group of people. Everybody's going to be struggling, apart from the very wealthiest. And so I think there is more sympathy at the moment than there probably has been for quite some time.
And there's anger with the effect rather than with the people who are doing it. And I think that probably with Labour, if you're a government in waiting, it's probably wrong for a shadow minister to appear on picket lines. That shouldn't stop MPs going out there, though.
And it hasn't, has it?
Nigel and Sam, see you again in 40 minutes' time. Thank you very much indeed. We were talking about the bins there and the bin strike in Scotland, and we'd rather not be featuring it, but I think it will pop up as we go to Edinburgh on your doorstep.
So Davy Donaldson is in Edinburgh for us this morning. I hope you've managed to wade through the rubbish for us, Davy. Where are you now?
Yes, I've managed to wade through the rubbish, and I'm here at Meadowbank Sports Centre, which is great because I missed my normal regular visit to the gym that obviously I have every single morning due to work commitments today. But lucky that Mikey Meakin here has decided to give me, he's a gym instructor, he's decided to give me a little bit of a workout here. So how does this work, Mikey?
So if you just choose the workout button at the top there, and then quick start. At the top right-hand corner again.
Yeah, thank you, yes.
And then we'll get you set up on a warm-up. So if you just start cycling for me there, and when it comes on, you've got the plus and the minus here, which is just going to increase the level, which will up the resistance. So you find a level that's comfortable for you.
Oh, easy.
And then
Too
we'll get
easy.
warmed up.
It's getting harder now. There we go. That's great. This is fantastic. So how busy has it been since you've opened?
It's getting there. It's started off a little bit slow, but now we're getting a lot busier, which we're just kind of expecting to get busier and busier now. So it's definitely getting to the point where we're happy with it.
A little bit slow, Mikey, just like my cycling. Right, I'm going to come off. I think that's enough for me. Done enough so far. Right, let's just have a look around the gym here. You can see absolutely fantastic, beautiful, beautiful surroundings. We've got brand new equipment, so much things going on. And come over here, we're into the weights section, which I know absolutely nothing about at all. Just going to speak to June Peebles, the Chief Executive of Edinburgh Leisure. June, what's it like? You've finally been open after so long been shut.
I'm delighted. We're actually open. I'm actually based here. Our Edinburgh Leisure offices are here. So it's fantastic. Lovely office, but it's just lovely actually working in a sports centre. So you feel really connected to, your products, your services, your customers. And the customer reaction has been fantastic so far.
How busy has it been?
Well, I'd like it to be busier, I have to say, in terms of customers have been really positive about it. It's certainly getting busier. July, we opened mid-July. It's a quiet time in Edinburgh. But certainly the last few weeks, the numbers have just been growing and growing, especially in the evenings. All the sports clubs getting back after the school holidays, etc.
Thanks very much, James, for joining us there. Right, I'm away to go and get changed because obviously I've got to continue my workout, Eamonn. So you'll have to excuse me while I go and get changed and go and try and get fitter.
To see you having had a workout for your next On Your Doorstep, Davey. Thanks very much indeed.
How fit are you, Isabel?
I've been fitter.
Yeah.
My ambition is to run home at least once this week. Halfway home.
Seriously, you're going to come in here, change into gear and run home?
Yeah, well, I'll get the tube a bit of the way and then I'll run the last leg.
Fair play.
That's my plan.
Fair play.
If I say it, it will come so.
After the break, we have been talking to a polling company. We've got the head of that company, Ipsos,
the global
about
head.
new data that shows half of Conservative voters want energy companies nationalised, right? Are you one of them? Let us know your views. Before that, we're going to see what the weather's like for Isabel running home today. Here we go.
Not today. The UK is looking mostly dry and sunny, although a few showers will develop, mainly in the north. Let's take a look at the details. Well, it will be a largely sunny afternoon across the southwest, although a brisk easterly breeze will develop, especially over the moors and along the coast. Temperatures will be around the low 20s. Southeastern England and East Anglia will also see a keen breeze, which will bring in a fair bit of cloud off the North Sea. The north of Wales may see the odd shower this afternoon, but much of the country will be dry with the best of the sun in the west. The Midlands then will see a dry bank holiday afternoon, but there will be a fair bit of cloud around, especially in the east. Despite this, temperatures will remain in the low 20s. North East England is to have a rather cloudy afternoon with perhaps the odd spot of rain around. Hop over the Pennines though, as North West England will be dry with some sunshine. Western Scotland will also see some spells of sunshine this afternoon, but further east it will be cloudier. A few showers may also develop, especially over the higher ground. Northern Ireland then may also see the odd shower develop, but most will miss them and have a dry afternoon with some spells of sunshine. Temperatures here reaching 18 to 20 Celsius. Cloud will then melt away as we move towards the evening, but some showers will continue in the north, and that is how your weather is shaping up for this Bank Holiday Monday.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Liz Truss considers the largest ever cut to VAT to tackle soaring bills as the Conservative leadership contest enters its final week.
Good morning. It's 8 o'clock. It's Bank Holiday Monday, the 29th of August. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Leading your news this morning, Conservative leadership frontrunner Liz Truss is considering plans to tackle the energy crisis with a 5% cut to VAT, as polling reveals more than half of Conservative members want energy companies renationalised.
Outgoing Prime Minister Boris Johnson will reportedly use his final week in office to tour the country, with sources suggesting he will make one final major policy speech before stepping down 7 days from now.
In travel, an amber traffic warning today. Millions of drivers are hitting the roads at the end of the bank holiday. The AA has advised travellers to carry food and water in the event of severe delays. Good advice, that one.
Yeah.
Food and water is one thing, but if you want to do a wee-wee, well, no, it's true. I was caught on the M25 recently, and I was considering getting out. My bladder was hurting. It was so bad.
Yeah,
right?
I'm glad you said you're considering getting out. I thought you were kind of reaching for a receptacle.
But then I realised if I got out, what would happen? I would be the only person, and they'd all be out with their cameras, and they'd say,
so you thought better of it?
I thought better of it, but luckily, thank God, within minutes it started to move. We'd have been sitting there 45 minutes or so, and then the traffic started to move before I started to move.
Thank the Lord. When I was a roving reporter, I covered 18,000 square miles, West of England correspondent, went right across south west Wales, down to Cornwall and across as far as Swindon on my own. Drove a lot. And my husband, then boyfriend, bought me a Shiwi. I never used it.
Oh, right. No
caveat.
No shame in that.
But it was an ongoing problem that I would turn up at a story ready to roll on it for days sometimes, and I was like, but I need to go to the loo. Awful.
But I remember when you and I used to work at Sky News, and I took pity on you, and I thought, I'm going to bring her into the studio. I'm going to bring her in, save her, because you just stood in fields flooded up to your knees.
I did do a lot of flood stories, yeah.
But no one would have noticed if you had a wee bit. Nobody would have been
Oh, God,
what did you do in the fields? What did you do when you were out there?
I held on.
Rolling news.
I held on for days. I don't know that I want to discuss this on national news.
Okay, but these are things people are interested in. They're fed up with that leadership.
It was an ongoing struggle.
Yeah. Anyway, if you had a thing you struggle with...
Thing of the past.
Anyway.
I don't want to talk about it.
Well, I don't know. No. Okay. GB Views at gbnews.uk. Tell us about being caught short. Or you can tweet at GB News as well. We're also, should say, we're going to the Isle Lammas Fair in about 45 minutes' time in Ballycastle. Did you ever treat your Mary Ann to some Dulcin Yellow Man at the Isle Lammas Fair in Ballycastle?
Have I got time to read this out?
Oh, right, okay.
I've got a message, because Eamonn's been singing on my Instagram along those very lines.
It's a great day.
Dawn Wilson got in touch. We went every year with my nan. We'd travel as a family along the breathtakingly beautiful Antrim coast.
Yes,
We'd sing this song and many the whole way. We had Dulce Yellow Man and our fortunes read by Gypsy Rose Lee and a fish supper on the way home on our knees in the car. You see, all Irish. They're all so romantic and sentimental.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And handsome. Have you ever noticed that as well?
Never met an ugly Irishman.
Back after this with the news.
Right, our top story this morning. The Conservative leadership frontrunner Liz Truss is reportedly considering a radical slashing of VAT by 5% in order to try and help voters coping with the worsening cost of living crisis.
Well, the Prime Minister's under increasing pressure to act to solve this crisis following new polling from YouGov, which suggests that half of all Conservative voters would back the renationalisation of the energy industry.
Well, joining us now is Alex Clegg, a senior policy and data analyst with Policy in Practice. A very good morning to you. Look, lots of suggestions on how all of this can be coped with, not least perhaps one of the most shocking suggestions that Conservatives would be in favour of renationalising the energy companies. Is that something that you can foresee Liz Truss or indeed Rishi Sunak deciding to do?
I think it's hard to say at the moment what they will decide to do, and I think that's partly the problem. I think as soon as we find out who the new Prime Minister is going to be next week, the first thing they need to do is to announce what they're going to do to deal with this crisis. You mentioned a poll earlier that said 1 in 4 people are planning not to put the heating on this winter. And that shows that people are desperately worried about what's going to come, and they deserve to know over the winter what they're.
And Alex, does that doesn't discriminate between younger and older voters, does it? I mean, is everybody concerned?
Yeah, I think that's the scale that we're looking at. I think obviously there are people that are going to be hit harder, older people on lower incomes, who need that support more than others. But I think the scale of this problem is that it's going to hit almost all of us quite hard.
How seriously do politicians take headlines and polling that says half of Conservative voters want energy to be renationalised?
I think they will take it. I hope they'll take it very seriously. I think politicians are always in tune with what voters are thinking, what the sort of temperature of the public is. I'm a bit worried at the moment that the leadership candidates are a bit more concerned with what the Conservative members specifically think rather than voters in general.
Yeah.
But hopefully, as soon as one of them wins the contest, they will be a bit more, looking to make that announcement.
I mean, you might have seen me just lurching across the shot there, sorry. I just wanted to talk about Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He's urging whoever succeeds him not to give up on green energy. A bit of a swipe, because both Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss have both said that they would get rid of the green levies, although they are still committed to net zero carbon by 2050. And also some suggestion there could be some big policy announcement, even though he promised he wouldn't do that in this interim caretaker period before his final week is out. Suggestions it could be Sizewell C, the nuclear plant, giving that the go-ahead, which would cost 20 billion. Is that right? 20 billion pounds? Huge outlay for whoever succeeds him.
Yeah, and obviously these are more long-term ways to address the energy crisis. The eventual plan to move into a sustainable future with energy needs to be something that's always in policymakers' minds. It doesn't necessarily help people to pay their bills in October, November, December this year.
No, fair enough. OK, look, Alex Clegg, thank you for your thoughts. Let's bring in Ben Page.
Alex is a data analyst, and Ben Page is the global chief executive of the polling company Ipsos with all of this. Ben, you join us from Newcastle this morning. Just listening to what Alex has had to say and our general conversation here, the cost of living crisis, is that the all-consuming issue, or what light have you got to shed from the polling that you have done as to what concerns people?
Well, in Britain, as around the world, inflation and prices are now the number one issue that concerns voters and the public. And the question is just, coming straight after the COVID pandemic, unexpected to everybody, but now people are really waking up to this. Concern about something like COVID-19 has virtually vanished in the United Kingdom. And it is all about prices, the economy, and how the government is going to help. And I think the challenge facing the government is our finances are not in good shape following the COVID-19 crisis, but the public now wants to see more action and more spending, which of course seems to go against the grain of some of the things that Liz Truss, the most likely winner of the competition to become the next Prime Minister inside the Conservative Party, she's slightly against the grain of the things that she says she stands for. But she's probably going to be forced to do it when she turns her attention from the small number of people who are, of course, choosing the leader of the Conservative Party to the electorate as a whole.
By that, you expect that she will be forced into more help, essentially, these handouts that she's claimed that she doesn't want to see?
It seems very likely. Well, she's talking about a £30 billion cut to VAT. The challenge with cutting VAT, for example, is that it doesn't affect the price of food, which is already zero rated, and that is part of the inflation problem. And it's very expensive, and it may on itself just not be enough, to be quite honest, for the people who are most affected, which is at least a quarter of the population are going to be seriously affected this winter.
And Ben, what is also not enough is just core Conservative voters, party members. That's not going to be enough to keep Liz Truss and the Conservatives in power. They need, as Boris Johnson got in the last election, they need people who voted Labour or Lib Dem.
Absolutely. I mean, remember, they're 9, 10, 12 points behind in the polls, depending on which ones you look at, but they're behind. It's not impossible for them to come back and win. David Cameron was this far behind Ed Miliband, but we're now 12 years effectively into a Conservative government. People are starting, and people are starting to consider the alternatives. Keir Starmer is not Tony Blair, but he's certainly not Mr. Corbyn. And so as a result of that, Labour now do have a serious chance of forming a government if the current polling continues. So she's got to pull something together. Making inflation worse will not help. Not sorting out the NHS or letting people go cold at winter will not help. She needs to see. She's got 3 months, I would say, once she becomes leader, assuming it's her, to really show that she's competent to deal with the economy. And that is the fundamental issue. Because although she's not particularly popular at the moment, fewer people say they trust her to sort out the energy crisis than trust Mr. Sunak or Mr. Johnson or Mr. Starmer at the moment. But the one hope, perhaps, that the Conservatives might have is that if she can pull it together, Keir Starmer as a leader is less popular than his party at the moment, and he has not crossed the line that opposition leaders need to cross, where they get more people who say they're satisfied with their performance than dissatisfied. Both David Cameron and Tony Blair had that position when they were in position. Keir Starmer has not achieved that, and he's now been doing the job for some time.
Ben, could I ask you, because he has this very difficult line. He's trying to centralise his Labour Party. He's trying to go back to the Blair days. He's trying to distance himself from Jeremy Corbyn era. But he's not aligning himself with workers and striking workers as well. Would that make a difference to the public? Do they want to see him stand up for workers' rights, or do they want to see him distancing himself, do you think?
Well, I think you've identified it correctly there, to be honest. He's got a very difficult balancing act. The Labour Party is generally assumed to be on the side of working people, and it always has more people who say it understands the problems of ordinary people than the Conservative Party. That's pretty much the sort of standard position. But of course, militant left-wing politics is something that he's, of course, trying to distance himself from the previous regime. So he's got to get people who voted Conservative in 2019 to stay with him and support him. And that is a difficult balancing act. I think the one thing I would say is that as we go into a squeeze in the economy, a squeeze on people's incomes, people tend to become more sympathetic when they find their own circumstances squeezed with other people at the bottom of the pile. And therefore, he's going to have to juggle that. But at the same time, of course, he's trying to make sure that he's not tainted with Jeremy Corbyn and of course, whose government or his opposition he was part of. And of course, the Conservatives will keep trying to go back to 2019. I think it gets harder and harder the further away that is.
Ben Page, a final thought about the Prime Minister, outgoing though he is. It's his last week in office. Lots of speculation about what his legacy will be. Some suggestions he might make some big policy announcement this week. I was reading in The Sun this morning, Mr Johnson's swan song will fuel speculation he could mount a comeback in the future if likely replacement Liz Truss proves a flop. What's the likelihood of that, do you think?
I would say never in politics, and Alex Salmond did that once in the SNP, but on a much smaller scale. I think what happened to Tony Blair after he left office might be more like what we're going to see with Boris Johnson. He may be a figure in British politics. I think the idea that he's going to become Prime Minister again at the moment is for the birds, to be quite honest. His ratings are not good.
Okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
Fascinating listening to you, Ben. Ben is the Global Chief Executive for the polling organisation Ipsos Live there from Newcastle. Appreciate your time and your analysis, Ben. Final word, Alex Clegg, as a data analyst. What would you like to add to that?
I think it's really interesting, the policies that have been proposed by Liz Truss to cut VAT, by the Labour Party and the Lib Dems to freeze energy bills. These are all things that could help on some level, but they're not progressive. They don't target the people who need the money the most. We would all be paying for more wealthy people's energy bills with these plans. I think the best way to get people money who need it the most is through universal credit, by boosting the universal credit system. That would allow it to be proportional to household sizes and to enable people to make it through.
And that's what Rishi Sunak's proposing, isn't it? He's saying that if he gets into power, he'll extend his May emergency package of £400 off fuel to everyone by offering £1,200 for pensioners and those on benefits. Around 16 million people would get the benefit of that.
Yeah, but the key there is to make sure that, unlike what happened with the package in May, it needs to be so. Larger households get more proportionally. They're going to have higher energy bills than single people. It needs to be worked out that way.
Yeah.
Alex Clegg, thank you for that. Appreciate that. We move on and bring you at 8:15 the latest news that you're waking up to. Unions are looking to launch coordinated strikes across multiple industries come autumn as they increase pressure over demands for higher pay. The idea will be discussed at next month's Trade Union Congress, with the Observer newspaper reporting that the country's two biggest unions, Unison and Unite, back the plan.
West Yorkshire Police are investigating after a 16-year-old boy died after falling ill at Leeds Festival. The force says they're looking into whether he'd taken an ecstasy tablet, but they believe it was an isolated incident.
NASA will launch its new moon rocket later today. It's unmanned, it's called Artemis 1. It will deliver the Orion exploration capsule into the moon's orbit, with astronauts expected to walk on the lunar surface in 2 years' time.
Just what we need during a cost of living crisis, sticking people on the moon again. I don't understand it. It's not even like going where no man has ventured before. What does it... I just don't...
Well, I would say that they are so crystal clear that the Earth is about to implode, that it's all finished, that there's too many people on the planet, there are no resources left, climate change is happening. They're getting out while they can.
Do you think that actually we'll be doing something useful like that, or is it just simply, let's put a man on the moon again?
No, I think they'll be looking for sustainability on the moon. They'll be looking for water on the moon. They'll build a moon base and they'll use it as a way of getting to Mars or somewhere else from
So you think it's actual worthwhile thing rather than a waste, huge waste of money in a cost of living crisis when people have actual problems?
I agree with you. I think the money, the expenditure is just astronomical, to use a lunar term, and it's very, very hard to justify. I mean, I would like to think that they're doing what I said, because if they're not, how do you justify?
Well, that's what
I
mean.
Say?
Anyway, we can make it to the moon. Can we make it down the M25?
Fly me to the moon. Ellie's got down. I don't know how she got there, but she
made it.
She's made it. She's what's it? Look, still those roads are empty. What's all this scaremongering? Empty roads.
I know it is still quite quiet down there. I'm trying not to look too much. But get on the roads before 9 o'clock is the warning, because there is an amber traffic warning today from the AA. They're saying that 45% of us have headed out on the roads at some point this weekend, and today is going to be another busy one. So if you are heading out on the road today, head out before 9 o'clock. It's not actually looking too bad down there, but often Bank Holiday Monday is synonymous with traffic, with sitting in your car for hours on end. And it does look as though it's going to be that way in many parts of the country, because there were so many events that took place over the weekend. There was Notting Hill Festival in North London. We had Carfest South in Hampshire, Reading Festival, Leeds Festival, Edinburgh Fringe is coming to an end as well. And there was also that test match in Manchester, cricket test match up in Manchester as well. So all of those people will be heading home today onto the roads, and it is going to be busy. So do check before you travel and leave plenty of time. There is warnings about the roads coming up from Cornwall up towards Bristol and London, and also leaving seaside resorts today. Obviously, lots of people have packed up and headed there for the weekend. They are going to be heading back today. So do make sure that you leave plenty of time today. 1.3 million people are expected to hit the roads today. And the focus of the jams will be the M25 near London, which is just where we're up now. So do check before you travel. And if you are in the car today, pack your drinks and pack your snacks, just in case you do get stuck in any traffic.
It's
Never
just the
mind
life.
that. Never mind packing the snacks. It's what goes in must come out. And we were talking about this today, the hazards of travelling and being a reporter. And we're looking at you, Miss Ellie, and you're perched on a bridge, a flyover there. There are no facilities near you, I'm assuming.
I know this is always the biggest trouble with this job. I always get caught short. I'm actually, to be honest with you, desperate to go now. So after I get off the line to you, I'm going to have to go find a coffee shop or a service station or something. Izzy will know all about this. It's part of the job.
It is part of the job. Eamonn wanted to know the details, but I spared everyone.
Spared everyone. But what I do know, Ellie, is if you're ready to go, when we were children, my father used to whistle, and that would guarantee you went. My father used to go...
Don't do that if she needs the loo.
That's why I'm doing it. That's what I'm doing.
it.
I can't whistle very well, but if you whistle, apparently it makes you want to
My mum
leave.
would turn the tap on.
That's yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, good luck, Ellie. We'll give you 20 minutes.
Isn't it? Oh,
you all right?
We're being beeped a lot up here. We're being harassed.
Oh dear. Right.
All right.
Okay. Well, we'll leave you to it. Stay safe.
Yeah,
Have a comfort break.
Thank you. So anyway, travel stress. We've got in the studio now Sally Gethin. Sally's a travel expert because we're looking at the roads there, which thankfully, Sally, seem okay before 9 o'clock. But what about the rail situation and airports?
Yeah, so traffic, as Ellie said, will build up on the roads later today, and some people might be delaying their journeys and travelling, tomorrow. So there could be some knock-on effects on the roads into this week. But also with rail, there's a lot of engineering works going on affecting a number of railway operators. Yeah. So you do need to check before you travel, check the live status of your train operator, and also if you do get caught up in delays, hit the delay repay button on your operator's website, and you can then go and try and claim for a delay of more than 15 minutes on each of your journeys.
Did you say 50 or 15 there?
15.
15?
Sorry, so anything more than 15 minutes delay, you can get... Sorry, how many minutes delay?
This is train journeys now. Yeah.
Okay.
So, a lot of people don't avail themselves of that and could be missing out.
Yeah, top tip. What about the airlines? Because I have to say, I've just come back from my summer holidays and, I was anxious about flying after all the reporting we've done, and it admittedly was terrible at the beginning of the year. I haven't got a bad word to say about Gatwick, and I believe it's going to be up to full capacity by the end of this month. It was an absolute model of how it should run. Everything was great.
Who'd you fly with?
EasyJet. It was all great.
Yeah, mind you, some EasyJet customers this weekend have suffered some delays and cancellations with EasyJet due to staff shortages. Some of those
a bit of a lottery.
I got lucky then.
And also sickness. There's a big shortage of staff across the aviation sector, and this will, cause some problems going forward. What to look out for is, unfortunately, slightly higher fares and less capacity in the system, which means when you're booking your flight, you might not get the choice of flights you had. But it's all for a long-term benefit, as you found, Isabel. Things are gradually improving, and some of these restrictive measures that Heathrow, for example, and Gatwick introduced are paying off. Gatwick is actually reducing all its daily flight caps that it had in place by the end of this month, which is obviously this week, and it will pretty much be back to normal. But Heathrow has still got a tight rein on what it's doing, and airlines aren't able to expand to the routes they would have liked to expand to because of that.
Who does it right, who does it wrong in terms of operators, or what are you hearing?
Well, and interesting you say that, Eamonn, because today it has emerged that Wizz Air has been named the worst airline for delays. So we don't hear much. This is a Hungarian-based operator, very competitive, rivaling Ryanair and EasyJet. A lot of people use Wizz Air, but it is getting a bad reputation for its delays.
But I presume that's because they don't have economic muscle with airports, really, the way Ryanair would or with British Airways.
Well, Wizz Air operates to more what we call secondary airports, so it does what we call like the low-fare airline market. It does have a lot of flexibility. It has been profitable, but, there is this inefficiency in place. And also, they're a bit of a controversial airline. Their CEO was caught out saying that pilots should struggle to fly even if they're fatigued, things like that, which don't go down very well.
You don't
with
want to know
traffic
that, do
public.
you?
No.
Autopilot,
I'm
it's
very
fine. They
tired.
don't do anything apart from take off and land.
And they're under a lot of strain and pressure as well, pilots. We need them, right, to keep our planes in the air and keep the whole network operating. So, Wizz Air needs to maybe brush up a little bit on its, not just PR skills, but its efficiency because of these delays that it's top of their league table with.
I must admit, I haven't gone away in the summer, and just the idea of airports losing your bag,
Go to Gatwick, it was fun.
cancellations. I know you say that, but look, even getting back to Belfast is difficult for me. I'd probably pay more for my flight back to Belfast than you have your flight to France.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like, it's about 250 quid or so each way. And also, flights were cancelled. So the flight that you wanted, as you say, the availability they had. So they're taking it out on the short-haul domestic workhorse routes. They're taking those out and...
Well, those are the ones that are most likely to be cut. And if it's a global airline, like British Airways, for example, or Lufthansa or any of those, they tend to want to preserve their lucrative long-haul routes, say, go to the United States, Dubai, and for example. And so it's the short-haul, the higher frequency routes that tend to have more cuts because they can still keep some flights running, but they'll cut back on others. And
I get that.
It's tough if you're the one who's, stranded.
OK, Sally, thank you very much indeed. So far, everything OK. Travel chaos predicted. It's not happening yet. Right.
A few bumpy patches.
A few bumpy patches. OK, thank you very much indeed, Sally.
Right, Eamonn, what time is it?
The time is 8:26.
No, you're wrong. It's Chico time! Do you remember him?
I do. I know Chico, yes. I know
One of the original contestants on X Factor. He's coming into the studio. He'll be talking about all those bullying allegations, claims of mistreatment from people who wanted to have their dreams come true on the X Factor. Talk about that in just a moment.
Hope the weather brings your dreams true today.
The UK is looking mostly dry and sunny, although a few showers will develop, mainly in the north. Let's take a look at the details. Well, it will be a largely sunny afternoon across the southwest, although a brisk easterly breeze will develop, especially over the moors and along the coast. Temperatures will be around the low 20s. Southeastern England and East Anglia will also see a keen breeze, which will bring in a fair bit of cloud off the North Sea. The north of Wales may see the odd shower this afternoon, but much of the country will be dry with the best of the sun in the west. The Midlands then will see a dry bank holiday afternoon, but there will be a fair bit of cloud around, especially in the east. Despite this, temperatures will remain in the low 20s. North East England is to have a rather cloudy afternoon with perhaps the odd spot of rain around. Pop over the Pennines though, as North West England will be dry with some sunshine. Western Scotland will also see some spells of sunshine this afternoon, but further east it will be cloudier. A few showers may also develop, especially over the higher ground. Northern Ireland then may also see the odd shower develop, but most will miss them and have a dry afternoon with some spells of sunshine. Temperatures here reaching 18 to 20 Celsius. Cloud will then melt away as we move towards the evening, but some showers will continue in the north, and that is how your weather is shaping up for this Bank Holiday Monday.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
(8:30) is the time. Just looking ahead, what we've got for you at 10 to 9.
You read this one.
We're going to the Isle Lammas Fair, boy. Were you ever there? Well, it's in Ballycastle. It's on this bank holiday Monday, and it runs into tomorrow, Tuesday as well. It sort of signals the end of the summer. Big sheep market and horses and things involved there, but everybody loves it. So you get some dulse, you get yellow mail. You can see me now. It's okay. We get the idea.
Yeah, you see, were you ever there? You were never anywhere but there by the sounds
I
of
had very
things.
good memories, very good time there. It was very good crack. Very good.
Really serious story, actually, at 9:15 this morning. We're going inside a puppy factory right here in the UK, where beagles specifically, due to their trusting nature, are being bred for use in animal testing. We'll be speaking to the women on a mission to put an end to it.
So bad as this, there's so much footage that we just can't show you. But the principle of this, whether these young dogs should be bred for testing, so there's two issues. There's the conditions they're kept in for breeding, and then there is morally what happens to them. Should they be used in this day and age to test cosmetics, cigarettes, alcohol, all sorts of things as well. So you can join in if you've got experience of this, if you've got something to say about this. If you rescue a beagle, let us know, gbviews@gbnews.uk. You can tweet at GB News.
Now, 6 former X Factor acts are planning a lawsuit against the show, claiming they experienced bullying and mistreatment.
So the complainants have said the environment on the programme, which ran for 14 years and was responsible to find people like One Direction, JLS, Ollie Murs, they say all of this was toxic for their mental health. Not everybody agrees with that. To tell us about the story, first of all, Stephanie Tetchy, alongside former X Factor contestant Chico. And Chico, I should say, and I said not everybody agrees with this, your experience, my friend, was a good one.
Yes, indeed, because it was kind of the beginning, really. And Simon kind of even said to me that year was really the template that was used for the rest of the series. Our treatment, I got to say, I got nothing to complain about in any way, shape or form, because we were looked after by our own mentors, and they gave us songs that we all had to agree on. Sometimes they said, look, do this song or do that song. Yeah. But there was a kind of a consensus that you were happy to do that song. So as far as I'm concerned, when I hear this, it's like bewildering to me, because I don't know who's complaining, but from what's been suggested or alleged is the people who've actually made it. Now, the difference back in my days, which was 17 years ago, was we didn't have social media.
Right.
So that didn't follow you. But regarding the well-being of people on the show at the time was absolutely incredible.
Well, look, let's get the story as to what the accusations are, and then we'll talk about the disclaimers and go back to your experience, Chico, after we speak to Stephanie Tetchy here, showbiz reporter. So what is the story and what are the accusations?
So, since February, Simon was hit with one set of claims, Psycho was hit with one set of claims of bullying and harassment. But now there's a fresh set of case of 6 claimants, 5 solo acts and 1 group act who've said that appearing on X Factor led them to be bullied, mistreated and facing neglect. And they've came together, and it's potentially like a case of strength in numbers. And they're preparing this legal case against Psycho to say that being on the show has affected their mental health. And what they want to be compensated for is the amount they've spent seeking medical professional help, which they feel the show should have provided to get their life back on track. Psycho have come out and said that this is nothing to do with Simon Cowell. He wasn't aware of it. He wasn't involved with any of the incidents. Even though it's Simon's company, it seems they're very much separating between Simon's response and their own response. X Factor also have come out and said that there was welfare, robust measures in place that helped these candidates at the time. But you see, this was around between up to 2018. So what was considered welfare then and welfare now is two separate things.
Okay.
Chico, when we think of X Factor and we're talking about the JLSs and the One Directions, and arguably you, one of the biggest names to come out of the brand, we think of, you know, the successes. But you've got to admit, one part of the show was also sometimes laughing at the expense of people who clearly were deluded or didn't have any talent, and perhaps exploiting their mental health a little bit. And, you know, there could possibly be... You wouldn't get away with that today.
You wouldn't get away with that today. And like what you just said now, the measures that are put regarding the welfare and the well-being of people is so much more. So it was kind of like we were all on a journey, not knowing what's what and how people are going to get affected, especially with the social media. And of course, look, let's be under no illusions, OK? It's a TV show that will do anything to make the show and get the figures. So whatever that may be, that is the case. And a lot of people go in, when people ask me and say, how would you describe the X Factor? I say, it's a conveyor belt. That's what it is. It's, you've got 12 months and then you move on because you've got new people. And a lot of people go in for the music, but it's a music business. It's still a business.
You saw the business side to show. So there's more business than show in it. So you were mentally strong for that, Chico, and you were quite aware of that. But I think it's fair to say, Stephanie, not everybody would be as seasoned or as wise as Chico.
No, and, you know, like a lot of these people come from, you know, like poor backgrounds. So to go on to X Factor, they think it's their meal ticket to the rich and famous, and it's not like that. They come off the show and about a year later, no one remembers who they are. And this is what these people are saying. It's the life poster show where they're kind of left to their own devices. Chico, do you think it's worth it to go through that and then you're left
look, absolutely. And I think what you've got to do is you've got to go in it with your eyes open. Now, I can understand. I mean, I was 34 years old and I've done a lot of things in my life. But if you go in as a 16, 17-year-old, you really think what you just said is the be and end all, and they think this is the holy grail. Well, it isn't. It's a platform that you can use to go on to do great things. And many, many people have done some brilliant things.
But you surviving after this because, you know, 1 minute you're the flavour of the month, you're in everybody's homes, whatever, then you've just got to get on with it afterwards. You got the catchphrase Chico time.
Yes.
You invented that, which was very clever, very, very good. But what do you do? Because you're not just an entertainer now.
No, absolutely. So I'm living from here, Portugal and Croatia. So I do retreats, and I've also got an app called Who Breath, HU Breath, and it's all basically about taking people from, especially the last couple of years, mental illness, anxiety, depression, and all of that. And people normally just come out for a week and spend a week with me, and they will do excursions, breath work, movement, yoga, meditation, cacao ceremonies, and we really go deep into the inner child to discover the inner trauma that's making us behave in a certain way. And the breath work seems to do it. So we've got something on the 18th to the 25th. I'd love you guys to come and enjoy it one day, and we're going to be building our own retreat in Croatia as well, near Plitvice Lake.
How do people book you? How do they get in touch with you?
Go to whobreath.com with the lovely Dion Lockyer, who's an incredible mindset coach, so we combine everything, mind, body, soul.
I'm so glad to hear, mate, that you came through the whole experience very well. Psycho, we approached them for comment. They asked to make it clear there was no allegation that Simon Cowell was in any way aware of or personally involved in the incidents or behaviour behavioural edge by the group, which Stephanie has already
They also
said.
say the X Factor, despite not having been on air for several years, remains open to discuss concerns with anyone who chooses to do so. So I suppose the door is open there.
The door is open, and guys, even though we're waiting to see what's going to happen with these cases, in the meantime, there's potentially a TV expose which might be coming on air to be talking about these bullying claims. Yes.
And, of course, we've got coming back this time to ITV, Big Brother next year.
Yes, we do. So it's, you know, but hopefully they'll have the right measures in place, because it's all good being a spectacle for TV. But once you're off TV, these people have real lives and real mental health challenges. There's been too many victims. So
absolutely. And I think, you know, there's got to be more robust welfare measures there for people. But at the same time, you know what you're getting into, and surround yourself by people who speak to you the truth and give you the reality of the transitional period, that it's a short period and it's a short window. Use it as a platform, not as a holy grail.
The reality of reality TV.
Well, not many men can pull off pigtails.
Well,
we applaud you for that.
Yeah, midlife crisis, 51 years now, you know, you've got to do something.
Well, your Chico time is up.
Thank you.
We're going to the break. We're back with the newspapers. Nigel Nelson, Sam Lister with those. Hope you can join us.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
With anything, after a
Welcome
while,
back. It's time to go through
I think
your
you've
morning
got to
news.
keep it
Today we're
authentic.
joined by the political editor
When
of the
it
Daily
becomes
Express, Sam
complete-
Lister, and another political editor this morning from the Sunday People. That's Nigel Nelson. Welcome back to you both. One last look through them. Nigel, let's start with you. The front of the Telegraph featuring Harry and Meghan, who are due to come over to the UK soon, but perhaps may not see Her Majesty whilst here.
No, apparently not. And it's the ongoing row about their security. So at the moment, because they're no longer royals, the feeling has been that we shouldn't be paying for massive security for them. So they're coming over here next week for two engagements in Britain, one in Manchester and one in London, another one in Dusseldorf, and they've got a couple of days free where they could actually go up to Balmoral and go and see the Queen. It doesn't make clear from the story why security should actually prevent them, on the basis that if they're OK in London and OK in Manchester, surely in the wild estates of Balmoral they'd be OK up there. But I think it's just part of the pressure they're trying to put on the Met Police to actually give them some protection. If the Met thought they were at risk, they would get protection anyway, regardless of being non-royals. They just can't have it automatically.
Right, interesting. So you think they're just making a fuss about nothing?
I think it is actually pressure to try and get the close protection officers they want.
OK.
We go to the front page of the Mail, Sam. Hospitals hit by 5.5 million day bed blocking crisis.
Yeah, and I think this is a story that will really resonate with many of your viewers, and it's certainly something that my family have experienced recently. And it is this case where you have an elderly relative, they go into hospital for something, and then they cannot be discharged because there's not the social care to look after them outside of hospital. So the medical side of things has been dealt with, but the general care that they need can't be provided. And the government is actually looking at recruiting nurses and social care staff from Sri Lanka and India. That's making visas more easy to obtain. But obviously there is such a deep crisis in social care, and it makes the point that actually you can earn so much more, you know, in a supermarket or as a delivery driver than you can in social care. And it's a massive problem that whoever becomes the next PM is going to have to really address very, very quickly, because, you know, we cannot go on like this.
All this nonsense that we don't need foreign workers, and we've got all these job vacancies that nobody in this country seems to want to take. And when I was in hospital 6 weeks ago, honestly, I would say 70% of the staff were Filipino. They were just, you know, and thank goodness for them. Right, so that costs £5.5 million a day, does it?
Yeah, and it's saying actually it's the worst month on record. 13,500 hospital beds, 1 in 7 where people could have been discharged.
But also, it amazes me that the NHS and the social care are not joined up. They're not one, you know, just one unit. But
governments have always talked about making it more integrated, but nobody's ever really been able to make that happen. And social care has always been this kind of Cinderella service compared to the National Health Service. And actually, it's quite interesting, Liz Truss, she's talked about, you know, obviously she wants to scrap the national insurance hike, which Rishi Sunak put in place to deal with all these issues. She's saying that can all be dealt with through general taxation, but she wants to divert the money away from the backlogs into social care. Obviously, if you've got the backlogs, you still need to deal with those. So we're not quite sure how she intends to do both things.
OK.
Nigel, this story in The Guardian is really interesting. I think if there's any journalists watching this, it'll send shivers down your spine. It has for me. Police officers reportedly being told to confess if they know a news reporter.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's terrifying. It's bad news, not just for us journalists, it's bad news for the police. This is from the College of Policing, who've been putting out this guidance saying that not only do they have to say if they know criminals or extremists, but equally journalists. And the whole thing is that we both help each other. I was a crime reporter many years ago, and I remember an occasion where I was about to go out to look at some odd goings on in a street nearby, and I thought I'll make a call to the police and see what's going on. And they said, whatever you do, don't go down there. They were mounting a major surveillance operation against organised crime. Had I gone down there and gone knocking on the doors, it would have blown their operation completely. So it's that kind of cooperation that works. And the idea that police will be frightened of talking to journalists, which is what this suggests, will make life bad for both sides.
Yeah, and you only have to look at what's happening in Liverpool and, you know, this murder investigation into Olivia Pratt-Corbell and the role the media have played in the police trying to appeal for names.
This is the point about the cooperation.
Yes, this is a real example.
Yeah, I mean, you're not asking the police to give away something that's secret. What you're saying is that you have a cooperation, therefore you must build a relationship with certain police officers, and this would stop it.
Yeah.
We go to the Telegraph. This is page 5 in the Telegraph with Sam, and this beggars belief, really, that to prove someone is dead, a doctor has told the widow of this man to actually film the body in order that he can dispense a death note.
It's so shocking. I mean, hopefully it is a one-off, but essentially there was an 80-year-old man who was being cared for by his wife at home. He had cancer, he passed away, and she called for the GP to come out and certify the death. And she was told, we don't come out to certify deaths anymore. You need to do a Zoom call or some kind of video call, And luckily she had a friend with her. The friend kind of took over so the GP could look at the body on video. I mean, it's so utterly lacking
So what does
in any
that prove? You could
compassion.
film Nigel now and you'd think he's dead.
Just tired.
It is horrendous. I mean, how do you certify death if we don't send doctors to certify death anymore?
Well, you can't do that. You've got to have someone there to do it.
Instead.
Well, also open to fraud, surely.
Yes.
Like, you think, you know, I can't pay my bills this winter. I might just do a disappearance act, quickly do a GP Zoom, and I'm death certificate sorted. Life insurance payout, job done.
Yeah.
It just shows a real lack of compassion.
I'll film it for you.
We'll try that.
Let's go into the garden now. A fruit hothouse. So we have bananas. Do you know, yesterday I was sitting in the back garden and I discovered that I love a plum. And I took them, I had this row because my wife doesn't like them chilled, but I had them in the fridge and they were chilled. There's nothing as nice as a juicy plum.
Yes, but it is nicer out of the fridge, and this is a fact.
I agree.
You shouldn't, no, as in not in the fridge.
Oh.
Keep it in the fridge to keep it from going off, but before you eat it, go room temperature, because the flavours are much stronger in all fruit at room temperature.
And then I took the seeds and I started putting them around the garden.
To grow plum trees.
To maybe grow plums. I mean, who knows? I just put them there.
There's nothing I like more than a juicy peach. Anyway.
In addition to that, you can go with your plums. You can have avocados, figs, watermelons, and possibly bananas.
All
and this
very
is
exotic.
All my favourite.
Very exotic, and all because of our
climate crisis.
The climate crisis, yes, the record-breaking heat wave. And this is coming from the Royal Horticultural Society. I presume if this goes on, we can go back to the Stone Age and have rhinos, lions, and hippos wandering around the countryside.
Well, we're going to show you a picture as to what this is. Have you got that pig picture? If you haven't, I'll take it. No, we haven't got that picture. It's not there. It's not there. But look, here we are on the front of the Mail here. Who or what is that? Can we get in close on this? No? Where are we? Come on. Oh, God. Where? I'm giving up. Right, where's 3? Where is
over there.
Over there, right. So who is that? Tell us more, Sam.
Well, it's Lewis Hamilton.
And he is a funny old fish, isn't he?
I mean, it's just, you know, well, I'm staggered by this fashion choice, but I mean, essentially, Lewis has solved the problem we're all wrestling with here, how to keep warm in winter. It turns out you put on your Nan's tea cosy as a balaclava.
Yeah.
He's got a big furry coat on.
It's like a Teletubby there. Is that what your onesie will look like?
No, my onesie's much more glamorous.
Okay.
But I think, you know, clearly this is a way to keep warm, but I would imagine Lewis Hamilton's got more money than sense if he's walking around like this, so I'm not sure he's actually affected by the crisis.
Our political editors, Nigel Nelson and Sam Lister, thank you both very much indeed. Thank you.
Right, sticking with politics, there's just 1 week to go now until the new Prime Minister is announced. The pressure is on for the Tory leadership candidates. And Rishi Sunak has said Liz Truss's plans to slash VAT across the board will do little to help those struggling to pay food bills and will benefit richer households substantially. Well, Victoria Prentice, MP, joins us now for Team Rishi. Very good morning to you. So he doesn't like this idea. What's his suggestion, Victoria?
Well, we know, and we've had some really difficult news for people on Friday and over the weekend. We know that price rises are happening at the moment, and we know that energy price rises are coming in a big way this winter. And it's the job of government to help people with these difficulties as and when they arise. Rishi's plan is very much to target that help at the most vulnerable households. So, for example, pensioner households or people with disabilities or households on the lowest incomes. There will be some help for everybody. He set out already when he was still Chancellor, when we had a different idea of how high the prices were going. He set out already that there will be some help for everybody, £400 off all of our bills in October. That'll be welcome, I think, across the board. But we may need to look at going higher than that. But 3/4 of the support that he put in place was targeted at lower income households. And I think that's the right way to go. I know this is hard for everybody, but for some people, it's really hard.
Yeah,
and we need to help them get through it.
And he's not entirely opposed to cutting VAT, but he wants to do that in a targeted way as well. But at the moment, VAT linked to energy bills is already only at 5%. So how much lower would he be prepared to go on that?
Well, exactly. So we need to look at government finances in the round and work out where we can best spend the money, best spend taxpayers' money to help particularly the most vulnerable through this winter. So what I would like to say is that even though we've been doing this leadership race for what feels like a very long time now, government ministers like me are still in post, the civil service is very much still in post, and working really hard on a range of measures to help people with the challenges that we know this winter is going to bring. So whoever wins the leadership election next week, there will be well worked up plans for them to put in place immediately. Some interventions already made when Rishi was still Chancellor, but I'm sure that we will have to do more given what we now know about energy prices.
Surprised were you to read the front of the Times this morning, this poll that they commissioned by YouGov, which shows that half of Conservative Party voters, more than half, would like to see energy companies renationalised. Could that be something that Rishi Sunak would see imposed?
Well, again, I don't think that is the solution at the moment to these current problems. We know that the reason for these price rises can really be laid at the door of Vladimir Putin. The war in Ukraine has really increased prices across the board in my own sector, farming. We're very worried about fertiliser prices, for example. We know that food prices have gone up, and we now know about these energy price rises. The way to deal with the problem is, in my view, Rishi's plan, which is to target that government support, not just take measures which apply across the board, which help the rich disproportionately, as it were. Yeah. So I think that's the way to go. I really do. And I don't think nationalisation would help, because the thing is that the wholesale gas price has gone up and we need to pay it. Yeah. I wish we could just pretend that it hadn't, but it has, and that money has to be paid for somehow.
Yeah, look, I hear what you're saying, and I hate to rush you, we are short on time. I just want a final thought on Boris Johnson. We know Rishi Sunak has said that he would scrap the green levies, but yet he's come out his final week at number 10 saying that he would like whoever succeeds him not to give up on green energy. Some of the papers speculating that he could even greenlight this week's Sizewell C, the nuclear facility. What do you think Rishi Sunak's views are on that?
Well, Rishi is actually a fairly committed environmentalist, and of course that's important. You were just having a chat with your newspaper reporter about climate change, and yes, it was in a light-hearted way, but this is real and this is happening, and we know that we have to deal with it. Something that Rishi's always been very keen on is insulation, which may not sound attractive, but he's put real money behind it, over £6 billion behind really good insulation scheme for people's houses. That is the way to help people, with practical, targeted, careful support that can also help the environment at the same time.
Okay, I'll assume that means he's not in favour of it. Victoria Prentice MP, Minister of State for the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, from Team Rishi. Thanks very much indeed.
One of the most beautiful places in the British Isles, especially on this bank holiday, August bank holiday Monday, and then tomorrow, Tuesday as well, is Ballycastle in Northern Ireland. The Isle Lammas Fair is taking place there. It's famous, it is renowned in Northern Ireland. It is renowned for its dulse and yellow man, which is seaweed.
Honeycomb.
Honeycomb.
Oh, yeah.
See, you don't know. You don't know. Dulse.
Just trying to translate for you.
Dulse, do you?
Which one's that? The seaweed?
The seaweed.
I'll have it crispy with my Chinese.
That's only cabbage.
Oh, right. Well,
that's
no,
never
then.
even seaweed. So Chinese seaweed's not seaweed, it's
perfect,
cabbage.
because I don't like the idea of seaweed.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, because of the pandemic, there's been no Isle Lammas Fair for the past 2 years, but there is now. Dougie Beattie has been there. Today's the big day in Ballycastle.
It's been running from the 1700s, and after 3 years' absence, the Lammas Fair returns with some modern twists. A fair that saw the end of the harvest and gave those in agriculture a chance to trade workers, animals and goods. It brought financial rewards to the area, and Mayor Ivor Wallace is sure that it still does.
It brings millions to the local economy, Dougie. I mean, it's so important for this area. You know, not only for the local traders, but far wider than that. There's people coming, they stay in the local area, so the Causeway Coast and Clans, they're staying in Portrush, Portstewart, Coleraine, they're travelling into Ballycastle, as well as that, just the local traders, the food suppliers, the food wholesalers, right down then to the vendors who will be here selling their wares at the fair.
Although foreign travellers are returning, it seems to be those who stayed at home during the pandemic that are helping local business.
There's a lot of people who maybe for the first time done staycations and they didn't realise what they had on their doorstep, and now they're coming back again and again. Foreign travel has certainly started to come back as well. There's quite a lot of Americans about again, and they're the ones that seem to spend £1. So yeah, I think this area has done fairly well.
The fair now stretches over 4 days, and day one was all about horse trading, with animals being paraded through the town, then raced on the beach. And Joan Laverty has introduced us to her special friend.
Oh, the Lammas Fair is great. Great for Ballycastle town. This is Albert. He's a big Belgian draft. He's 13 years old. And everybody we've been talking to today wants him to win.
It is hard not to see the beauty of the Antrim coast, but as the summer comes to an end, we will await to see how many events give the public purse a worthwhile return. Doogie BD, GB News, Ballycastle.
Thanks, Doogie. That's good for my soul.
Enjoyed that,
Seeing that, yeah, very good. Used to go from holidays there all the time, and it's a lovely place. If you haven't visited, put Ballycastle on your map where to go. And if you go to the Lammas Fair, boy, were you ever there? Were you ever at the fair at Ballycastle? Oh, did you treat your Mary Ann to some Dulcin Yellow Man at the Lammas Fair in Ballycastle? Oh, back after the break.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Liz Truss considers the largest ever cut to VAT to tackle soaring bills as the Conservative leadership contest enters its final week.
Hello there, very good morning. Good to see you just after 9 o'clock on this bank holiday Monday. It's Monday the 29th of August. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Conservative leadership frontrunner Liz Truss is considering plans to tackle the energy crisis with a massive 5% cut to VAT, as polling reveals more than half of Tory members want energy renationalised.
The outgoing Prime Minister Boris Johnson will use his final week in office to tour the country. Sources suggesting he'll make a final major policy speech before stepping down 7 days from now.
An amber traffic warnings in place for today as millions of drivers hit the roads at the end of the bank holiday weekend. The AA has advised travellers to carry food and water in the event of severe delays.
Thanks very much indeed for joining in all our discussions today by email, by Twitter as well. A lot of you, just fracking situation. Those who've been in touch with us today, all in favour of that. You're really frightened about your energy bills, suffice it to say. The bin strike in Scotland, a lot of you pointing out that Nicola Sturgeon has her bins emptied as First Minister, paid for out of the public purse. So you don't feel that she's empathetic to what's happening to your bins, and the cost of living you're just finding scary, scary, scary. I hope we've reflected those throughout the programme today. Top story on this Monday morning. The Conservative leadership frontrunner Liz Truss is reportedly considering slashing VAT by 5% in order to help voters cope with the worsening cost of living crisis.
The Prime Minister is under increasing pressure to act to solve the cost of living crisis following new polling from YouGov, which suggests that half of all Conservative voters would back the renationalisation of the energy industry.
Is 5%. We've got Malcolm Grimston now. Malcolm's a Senior Research Fellow at the Centre for Energy Policy on all this, and maybe you can tell us, Malcolm, 5%?
Well, I think that's talking about 5% right the way across the board, not just energy. Energy already has a lower rate of VAT at 5% compared to 20% across the economy as a whole. I guess the question with all of this is, things are going to be horrendous over the course of the next year. Government can do something about that, but shifting the burden from consumers onto taxpayers still leaves the problem somewhere in the UK.
It's a big problem. Nearly 1 in 4 adults planning not to turn on their heating over the winter. What do you make of that?
I mean, that presumably is if nothing changes and if no help is available. I think we've got to be very, very tight in targeting the help to those who need it most. The group of people I'm most concerned about are those on prepayment meters. Many of us who use direct debit, at the moment, we're building up a bit of money because we're not using all that much energy, and that's something which will be in the bank when it comes to the great increases later in the year. For those who are on prepaid meters, of course, they're paying literally sort of hand to mouth. They're paying as they go along. They're going to be horrendously hit there. So the real focus, my view, rather than trying to bring the overall price of energy down, for me, people like me, I'll take energy more seriously, and somewhere there has to be more money for investment to stop this happening again. But I think it's targeting at those who are going to face the most difficulty rather than a general reduction in
Malcolm, talking about radical, rethinks when we talk about this crisis. Interesting to see that in a YouGov poll commissioned by the Times newspaper this morning, half of current Conservative voters would be in favour of renationalising our energy companies. Now, you wouldn't expect Tories to take a sort of socialist approach on this. Can you just give your reaction to that and also compare us to other countries? Because we're a bit of an outlier compared to many other European countries when it comes to this.
Well, there's a lot of variation. I mean, France, the electricity industry is basically nationalised. The EDF is technically a company, but 84% of it is owned by the French state. In Germany, it's pretty much all in private hands. In Sweden, it's always been a mixture of private and public ownership.
Is anyone else seeing the same sort of price hikes that the UK is facing?
Yes, they are. I mean, the basic price hike is caused by the international gas price. So the question is really, what are different governments doing about it? In France, because they have a lot of nuclear, which hasn't been affected by this crisis, they've been able to cap the increase on energy prices by 4%. And that's been helped by the fact that it's a public company. But firstly, private nationalisation will be enormously expensive. If you do it at the point when the companies are very profitable, then they're buying them out is going to be very expensive. And of course, once they're in state hands, then they are competing for investment with the sexier things like the health service and the police and education. An experience of the past is that important infrastructure like the rail network, like water, like energy does not get the investment it really needs when in state hands.
You keep saying that. You said to me earlier there, we've got to make sure there is money for investment. What do you mean by that?
Well, one of the reasons why we are where we are is that we didn't invest in nuclear stations 20 years ago, which could have then been coming online to replace the ones that are coming to the end of their life. We didn't invest in some North Sea gas, and we need to move away from fossil fuels. But gas is going to be very important for a long time because it fills the gap when the wind isn't blowing or when the sun isn't out. We didn't invest in the North Sea to the extent that we could have done, which left us very dependent on Europe. And of course, when the European price shot through the roof, we were caught as much as anybody else by that. We do need some investment in our wires. If we're building a lot of offshore wind, we need a lot of new wires to carry that electricity to where it's going to be needed. And all these are big ticket items.
Well, that was Malcolm Grimstone speaking to us a little bit earlier. He, of
You were
course,
very good for interviewing them.
Did you get them back?
I thought they were good. I'd give them a job.
You would, yeah? Great job. Senior Research Fellow at the Centre for Energy Policy and Technology at Imperial College, that was, Malcolm.
Yeah. Right, if you're travelling today, get on the road ASAP, because as soon as it hits lunchtime or whatever, the roads are going to be bunged. That's the warning from the AA. They've issued an amber travel warning, so everybody's coming back from wherever they were in the first place. And Ellie Costello is out and about. She's at where the A1 joins the M25 in Hertfordshire. Ellie, thoroughly enjoying, more than your reports, thoroughly enjoying your Instagram accounts and the real pictures of where you are and what's happening. So I'd recommend anybody to log on and check Ellie's Instagram accounts. Roads a wee bit busier, but not bad.
Yeah, it's not looking too bad up here, actually. I am refraining from looking down too often, but it is a little bit busier. But as you say, we're expecting most of the traffic to build up around lunchtime, people heading home after celebrating their bank holiday weekend in lots of parts all over the country. We have got that amber traffic warning from the AA. They're warning about lots of people sitting in traffic today. They're estimating that 45% of UK drivers have actually headed out on a leisure trip at some point this weekend. So lots of us out and about on the road. And they're also estimating that 1.3 million people are going to be getting in their cars today. So if you are heading out and about on the road, do it now. Don't wait until lunchtime, because that's when everybody's going to be making their way home. It's estimated that most of the traffic jams are going to be around the M25 area of London, which is just up from where we are now. And this amber warning is only the second one ever in history, and that's partly because of the fantastic weather that we've had this weekend. It's sunny, it's warm, but there's also been so many events this weekend that people are going to be heading home from. We've had Notting Hill in North London, we've got Reading and Leeds Festival, Edinburgh Fringe is coming to a close, and we've also had the cricket test match up in Manchester. So that's part of the reason why we're going to see so many people heading home today. There are specific warnings about roads coming up from Cornwall towards Bristol and London. Obviously, lots of people heading there for the bank holiday weekend. Already on the M5, it is partially blocked after a crash there this morning, leaving Weston-super-Mare. So do be careful if you're heading back from there, and leave plenty of time to get home. Make sure you pack your snacks if you're going to be stuck in traffic as well. You don't want to be caught short on the roads. If you're flying home today, do be aware that 900 inbound flights have been cancelled over the bank holiday weekend. Now, if that does affect you, you probably are already aware of that. But if your flight is still going ahead, make sure you leave plenty of time to get through security, as of course lots of people will be flying home ready to start school this week. Thankfully though, some good news. National Rail is pretty much running perfectly today. 95% of routes are open and running well, but certain routes do have engineering work being carried out today, so do check before you travel and do leave plenty of time. So the warning today is leave before lunchtime if you can, and make sure you pack water, pack snacks, and do check before you travel.
Good advice, Ellie. Thank you very much indeed. And as we were saying, log on to our Instagram account there and you'll see what it's like being on the road.
The real story.
Real story. The real story.
Stay with us. Coming up after the break, we've got some absolutely extraordinary and shocking footage inside a beagle factory where dogs are bred in this country to be used in pharmaceutical testing.
If you are an animal lover, if you've got a heart at all, if you've got compassion, watch this and ask yourself, should this be going on in modern day Britain? OK, that's going to be after this break. Here's the weather.
The UK is looking mostly dry and sunny, although a few showers will develop, mainly in the north. Let's take a look at the details. Well, it will be a largely sunny afternoon across the southwest, although a brisk easterly breeze will develop, especially over the moors and along the coast. Temperatures will be around the low 20s. Southeastern England and East Anglia will also see a keen breeze, which will bring in a fair bit of cloud off the North Sea. The north of Wales may see the odd shower this afternoon, but much of the country will be dry with the best of the sun in the west. The Midlands then will see a dry bank holiday afternoon, but there will be a fair bit of cloud around, especially in the east. Despite this, temperatures will remain in the low 20s. North East England is to have a rather cloudy afternoon with perhaps the odd spot of rain around. Pop over the Pennines though, as North West England will be dry with some sunshine. Western Scotland will also see some spells of sunshine this afternoon, but further east it will be cloudier. A few showers may also develop, especially over the higher ground. Northern Ireland then may also see the odd shower develop, but most will miss them and have a dry afternoon with some spells of sunshine. Temperatures here reaching 18 to 20 Celsius. Cloud will then melt away as we move towards the evening, but some showers will continue in the north, and that is how your weather is shaping up for this Bank Holiday Monday.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Right, welcome back. It's 16 minutes past 9. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have backed an end to the use of beagles in animal testing and called for the closure of facilities being used to breed the dogs.
Meghan and Harry have adopted a 7-year-old beagle called Mamma Mia, who was one of 4,000 dogs rescued from a biomedical research site in Virginia. Now, in just a moment, we'll speak to the women on a mission to close a similar site in the UK and rescue the dogs inside. Before we do that, we're going to speak to Shannon Keith. We go to America to speak to her. She's project director at the Beagle Freedom Project. And as I understand it, Shannon, you had a role in Meghan and Harry's new edition. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
How important was it that Meghan and Harry rescued or adopted Mamma Mia?
Oh, absolutely critical. They're making such a statement by adopting such a special needs dog who came from such horrific circumstances. There she is, sweet Mamma Mia, a 7-year-old beagle who came from a breeding and testing facility. She was born in a laboratory, subjected to horrific experiments, being bred over and over again for 7 years. Her puppy's stolen from her and sold to testing. And what a great thing they did by adopting a special needs dog like her and adopting a mother. Most people just want the puppies, and they did a great thing by adopting her.
Well, Shannon, we are here obviously in London talking about what is going on in Cambridgeshire. Now, the farm that Mamma Mia was rescued from was called Marshall Farms in America. That is the company. Here, they're known as MBR Acres. And what I want to do is read their lengthy right of reply on this. And then I want you and our guests in studio, Rosemary Reid, founder of The Power of Dogs. Very good to see you, Rosemary. And solicitor advocate Jill McGivern, who joins us as well. MBR Acres is a fully licensed as a specialist laboratory animal breeder that raises dogs to be content in a lab environment. Most will be used to satisfy the requirements of the medicines regulator, that potential new treatments for conditions like cancer and diabetes are safe. Our animals are happy, healthy and well cared for, as evidenced by inspection reports from the Home Office. This is part of what they said, and I'll read more of what they said very shortly, but that's what they say. You're now going to look, we're going to show you some undercover filming of what MBR say are happy, healthy and well cared for animals. Now, maybe the thing you've really got to hear here is the sound of all of this and the yelping. Oh, apparently there is no sound on this. I don't know why that is.
Well, I mean, we can describe the sound. I've watched all of this footage, and all you can hear is puppies shrieking and quite clearly in distress. And not only that, walking around and in some cases eating each other's defecation. They're on their own for something like 15 hours a day.
And this has then been sent off to the labs to be tested. Yeah. Let's bring in Rosemary Reid now from Power of Dogs. What would you like to say? Because there are people outside who protest about this, and they've done it for many, many years, and media moves on and media doesn't seem to be interested. You've got to watch film like that to have a real opinion.
Yes, indeed. I was approached by a friend of mine who asked me to get involved and support the closure of MBR Acres. And from the first off, the thing that has always stuck with me is the sound of, if you stand outside MBR Acres, the haunting sound of all those dogs inside that are obviously very distressed. Yeah. I then thought, what can I do? How can I get involved? How can I help those campaigners that are 24/7 outside MBR? And I reached out, we both came together, Jill and I, and we discussed a plan of a way forward, because these dogs are bred at MBR, and from the age of 16 weeks old, they're taken to laboratories, tested on with the most despicable...
Oh, the pictures we've seen, we can't show.
Sure, it's despicable.
Bleach going down their throat and things. Jill McGivern, however, is there a suggestion that there's any illegality here? I mean, there's a moral stance on all of this, but is there anything illegal?
Aidan, that is the really tragic thing here, because what MBR Acres are doing is licensed by our government, and that therefore makes it lawful. But it is wholly unnecessary, and I think a great many people don't actually know that we are bound by regulations in this country which require us to test any potential new medicine on 2 species. But it is also the case that if there is an alternative to testing that potential medicine not on an animal, we should do that. And yet the Home Office never enforce that. They don't oversee it. And parliamentary questions which have been asked over the last 2 years have shown that every single licence that has been granted by the Home Office to breed and to torture those dogs has been granted without any consideration, not for a second, of the fact that we no longer need to torture these animals because we have cutting-edge science. We could lead the world in this country using this cutting-edge science, which means we no longer need to do that. And this is over 3 million animals a year.
Well, MBR is saying the fact that animals are still used in research means that a suitable, validated alternative does not yet exist. Shannon Keith, are you any further down the road in the USA of bringing this sort of practice to an end?
We have amazing alternatives like organs on a chip. We're growing skin. We just closed down the horrific facility that Mamma Mia was from. And so we're excited to be partnering with these amazing women and bringing this knowledge and this amazing activity to the UK as well with Beagle Freedom Project UK. So we think that with all of this combined, this is a great thing that we can actually campaign for and do in the UK.
I want to ask you, Rosemary, I mean, there's this talk about if you bring in a new medicine or drug to treat human illnesses, it needs to be tested on 2 species. Why does one of those species need to be an animal that is a pet? You know, why a beagle? You know,
why not
beagles are
artificial
so trusted.
intelligence? Why not a computer?
But, you know,
Exactly.
what is it about beagles specifically? And what are you campaigning for? Is there a petition to try and liberate these dogs?
There is. Beagles, as you probably know, as a dog lover, are the most gentlest and forgiving of all dogs. That is why they're especially chosen. No matter what abuse a human gives them, they'll come back with love and wanting you to give them cuddles. But, you know, for us, we will just want MBR as a start to shut down. These animals are left on their own from 5 o'clock in the evening till 7 o'clock the next day. They have no proper, they have no toys, they live in filth, they have food that drops out, which goes on the floor where they have excrement. It's a disgrace the way they're being kept, and there is no need for this to be happening.
Rosemary describes it as a disgrace. MBR Acres say we remain proud of what we do every day because our work allows the progress of medicine to improve. Jill, what are you calling for? Or do you say that, you know, this is just not, in 2022, this is just not the way we need to do things anymore?
It absolutely isn't. And if they use the word progress, let us look at the world in which we live. Let us look at the diseases and conditions which kill all of the people we know and love. Heart disease, cancer, dementia. There are no cures yet. Everyone will lose a loved one as a result of those conditions. And there are no cures because we are testing on animals and it doesn't work. But we can now, in this day and age, say we don't need to do it because the science is there now. As you say, organ on a chip. The Johns Hopkins University in the States, they are doing phenomenal research. They are moving closer to cures because they are not torturing animals.
Shannon Keith, just final word from you. What the Sussexes are doing here by adopting this beagle, what do you think this does? Why is that important?
It sends a message. It sends a message that this cruelty needs to end. It's unethical. And there she is again, sweet Mamma Mia. And that people need to look at what's going on around in society. People need to shop cruelty-free. People need to get on board to stop animal testing. It is not scientifically valid and it's unethical and it just plain needs to stop. And if these wonderful people are adopting this wonderful dog and are in support of this, everybody else should be in support of it too. There's just simply no need. Let's end this right now.
Shannon Keith is from the Beagle Freedom Project. Thank you very much indeed for your time and for highlighting this. In studio, Rosemary Reid, founder of The Power of the Dog. She's got a petition, look that up, The Power of the Dog. And Jill McGovern is a solicitor advocate as to the legality of all of this. And unfortunately, it is legal as endorsed by our government. Get in touch with your MP, see what they have to say about this. The real tragedy about what we showed today is that it had no sound. because that's what you needed to hear.
Yeah.
And also we can't show you the pictures from the actual laboratories which carry out the tests. They force animals to smoke cigarettes, inhale cigarette smoke.
Yeah, and these are animals that are bred in captivity, that they never see a blade of grass or feel a drop of rain.
But they get bleach put down their throat. And they have all sorts of cosmetics tested on them,
And all
whatever.
they want is love.
Rosemary, I've tried to describe it as best I can. Do you just have in 15 seconds some way just to sum the horror of all of this up?
It is horror. It's something that as a country of so-called dog lovers, this should not be going on in this country.
Okay. But it is going on in Witton, in Cambridgeshire, MBR Acres. And to the people who are out there protesting, Jill, anything you would... And they've done it for a long time without much recognition.
Eamonn, they are heroes. They've already been through one winter sleeping at the side of the road in silent prayer to save those animals which are being bred on rotation. They are heroes. But I thank you, Eamonn, so much for saying to the people listening to you today, please contact your MP. We're moving through to a general election. If people out there, now that you've brought this to their attention, do contact their MP and say, change this. We can change it. We should change it.
May I ask if they go on to the Paradogs and sign the petition,
Yes, indeed.
on social media?
OK, thank you.
We'll put
Guys,
that link on our
we're out of time. I hope we've done our bit today.
We
Do you know
have.
what? I think if we can invite the guys back in the future, this will be a story. If it matters to you, it matters to us. It certainly does matter to us. And, you know, if you want to say something about this, we'll talk about it again. Thank you for watching today. Have a pretty decent bank holiday, whatever you're up to. Isabel and I will be back tomorrow.
We will, bright and early from 6 o'clock. Coming up, Tom Harwood has the briefing. See you.
The UK is looking mostly dry and sunny, although a few showers will develop, mainly in the north. Let's take a look at the details. Well, it will be a largely sunny afternoon across the southwest, although a brisk easterly breeze will develop, especially over the moors and along the coast. Temperatures will be around the low 20s. Southeastern England and East Anglia will also see a keen breeze, which will bring in a fair bit of cloud off the North Sea. The north of Wales may see the odd shower this afternoon, but much of the country will be dry with the best of the sun in the west. The Midlands then will see a dry bank holiday afternoon, but there will be a fair bit of cloud around, especially in the east. Despite this, temperatures will remain in the low 20s. North East England is to have a rather cloudy afternoon with perhaps the odd spot of rain around. Pop over the Pennines though, as North West England will be dry with some sunshine. Western Scotland will also see some spells of sunshine this afternoon, but further east it will be cloudier. A few showers may also develop, especially over the higher ground. Northern Ireland then may also see the odd shower develop, but most will miss them and have a dry afternoon with some spells of sunshine. Temperatures here reaching 18 to 20 Celsius. Cloud will then melt away as we move towards the evening, but some showers will continue in the north, and that is how your weather is shaping up for this Bank Holiday Monday.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown